Black and White by Liu Jiming, translated by Chen Gang, Part 3, Volume 3, Chapter 3, 1, Unfinished Deal. After visiting Wang Sheng at Zixin Reform Farm, Gu Zhang began preparing for the appeal. Since the case had occurred over 2 years ago, exceeding the deadline for regular appeals, she could only petition the Supreme Court. The law imposed many restrictions on late appeals, but these were merely procedural issues that weren't difficult to resolve. They simply required more legwork. For nearly 6 months, Gu Zhang delegated the website operations to Lang Tian and Tian Qingqing, while she frequently visited courts and procuratorates. With considerable effort, she obtained the relevant appeal materials. Everything was in place except for one final element. After securing Wang Sheng's power of attorney, she still needed testimony from a key witness. During her previous meeting with Meng Fei, Gu Zhang recorded their entire conversation, but the court required them to be notarized for such recordings to have legal standing as testimony. Gu Zhang made another trip to Niangzi District to obtain a notarized authorization from Meng Fei. However, when she arrived at the 2-story building where she had last seen Meng Fei, she knocked repeatedly until her hands hurt, but received no response. While puzzling over this, a voice suddenly came from behind her. "Don't bother knocking. They've moved." Turning around, Gu Zhang saw the elderly woman she had met previously. "When did they move?" Gu Zhang asked, filled with doubt. "About a month ago," the elderly woman replied, her tone uncertain. "A man in black clothes came with several assistants and took the mother and daughter away along with their furniture." "Do you know where they moved to?" Gu Zhang asked. "That I don't know. Those two lived in the building for almost 2 years but rarely spoke with neighbors. Nobody knows where they came from or even her name." As the elderly woman spoke, she scrutinized Gu Zhang and asked, "You visited before. You must know her well. How could you not know where she went?" Gu Zhang was filled with self-reproach on her way back to Dongjiang City. She regretted her oversight in not having Meng Fei's recording notarized immediately. The disappearance of the sole evidence and witness dimmed the hope that had just begun to rise within her. Just then, Gu Zhang received a phone call. It was a middle-aged man speaking Mandarin with a slight Chuzhou accent. The voice sounded familiar, yet she couldn't immediately place it. As she wondered, the caller identified himself. "This is Du Wei." Upon hearing this name, Gu Zhang nearly dropped her phone. Since leaving the Dongjiang University campus, she hadn't heard Du Wei's voice again. Yet she had never forgotten him. The incident in Lover's Forest years ago still haunted her like a nightmare, making her feel sick whenever she recalled it. She had assumed that after graduation, they would never cross paths again. Still, she never anticipated that Du Wei would remain working at the provincial newspaper, frequently appearing in papers and on television, adorned with an array of dazzling titles and becoming a cultural celebrity in Dongjiang province. For a period, Gu Zhang heard her brother Zhang Tianyi frequently mention Du Wei to the point that her ears felt calloused. Once, her brother mentioned that Du Wei was involved in a copyright lawsuit and asked if she would be willing to serve as his attorney. Gu Zhang refused without a second thought. Now, hearing Du Wei's voice on the phone, she immediately thought of Wang Sheng's case that she was representing. The plaintiff, Wu Bozhong, was Du Wei's godfather, while Du Wei and her brother Zhang Tianyi had once been friends. Du Wei was also the direct superior of the defendant, Wang Sheng. Although Du Wei had never appeared during the trial and sentencing, given his relationships with these individuals, how could he possibly remain uninvolved? Gu Zhang had long known that her brother and Du Wei shared an unusual relationship. They seemed to be collaborating on some project. At that time, she never imagined that shortly after her brother's death, such a sensational dispute would erupt between her sister-in-law, Meng Fei, Du Wei's godfather, Master Wu, and Wang Sheng, unwittingly drawing her into this legal battle. As Wang Sheng's defense attorney, although she knew she was no match for her seniors Huang Zuping and Niu Jie and was fully prepared for defeat, she never expected the court would impose the maximum sentence for defamation, sentencing Wang Sheng to 3 years. Based on Gu Zhang's legal experience, Even if all the plaintiff's charges against Wang Sheng were valid, such a severe sentence was unwarranted. Upon seeing the verdict, her first reaction was that this was no ordinary criminal private prosecution case. The ability to convert what should have been a civil defamation dispute into a criminal private prosecution with a maximum sentence indicated that an extraordinary force was manipulating the process behind the scenes. Beyond her seniors, Huang Zuping and Niu Jie, who else could it be? Gu Zheng had a strong suspicion that Du Wei's sudden call likely related to Wang Sheng's case. So, when Du Wei invited her for coffee, she surprisingly agreed. They arranged to meet at Jane Eyre Coffee House. Since leaving Junding Law Firm, Gu Zheng hadn't visited Jane Eyre. When Du Wei asked where to meet, she instinctively mentioned Jane Eyre. Du Wei didn't ask for details. He was familiar with the cafe, too. Gu Zheng felt somewhat anxious on her way to Jane Eyre Coffee House. She wasn't sure of Du Wei's exact purpose, but if it concerned Wang Sheng's case as she suspected, what was Du Wei trying to achieve? Could it be related to the appeal she was preparing? She felt tense, as though heading to a dangerous meeting. The magnolia tree in front of Jane Eyre Coffee House had grown taller than 2 years ago, its lush branches providing summer shade. Female servers in knee-length skirts moved about, their skirts opening like lotus leaves, adding a touch of elegance to the cafe. A saxophone melody played in the hall. It's floating, and the melancholic tune reminded Gu Zheng of coming home. The scene was virtually unchanged from 2 years ago, down to the arrangement of tables and chairs. Gu Zheng instinctively looked toward the window booths. Perhaps because it was daytime, the row of window booths stood empty. 2 years ago, she, Liu Jia, and Wang Sheng had all sat there. She thought, or perhaps hoped, that Du Wei would be sitting there too. At that moment, a female server in a short skirt approached and quietly asked, "Ma'am, are you Mr. Du's guest?" Gu Zheng nodded, and the server said, "Mr. Du is waiting for you upstairs in a private room. Please follow me." Gu Zheng had always stayed in the main hall during her previous visits to Jane Eyre and had never been upstairs. Following the server up a spiral staircase, she found the second floor comprised of elegantly decorated private rooms. The server stopped at a room labeled Rochester, knocked twice, and gently pushed open the door. "Mr. Du, your guest has arrived," the server said softly, turning aside and gesturing for Gu Zheng to enter. Gu Zheng walked through the open door and saw a man in a beige casual suit with slightly curly hair reclining on the sofa. One hand rested on his hip, while the other held a phone to his ear. He spoke in a sharp voice, his face stern as if lecturing someone, an imperious demeanor. Seeing Gu Zheng enter, he immediately moved the phone away from his ear and turned his gaze toward her. Gu Zheng recognized the man in the private room, Du Wei. Though many years had passed, those hawk-like eyes that always seemed to be searching for secrets, the exaggerated expressions when speaking, and the Chuzhou accented Mandarin, who else could it be? "Hello, how long has it been since we've seen each other?" Du Wei stood up and spoke in an old acquaintance's casual, friendly tone. The imperious expression from his phone conversation vanished, replaced by the polite, refined smile characteristic of a man of status in social settings. Gu Zheng's gaze swept across Du Wei's face as she surveyed the room. The private room was small, containing only 2 facing fabric sofas. The wallpaper was excessively ornate, and the lighting too dim. It didn't resemble a place for business discussions, but rather a venue for lovers' rendezvous. Gu Zheng felt intensely uncomfortable, with the memory of that incident in Dongjiang University's Lovers' Forest flashing through her mind. She seemed to detect that familiar scent emanating from Du Wei again. After all these years, that smell had never truly dissipated, and Gu Zheng felt nauseated again. She wanted to flee the room immediately, but she controlled herself, suppressing the rising sickness and coldly asked, "What did you want to see me about?" "Gu Zheng, you're still as proud as you were at Dongjiang University." Du Wei's smile gradually stiffened. Seemingly to mask his embarrassment, he pulled out a pack of Zhonghua cigarettes, lit one, and took a deep drag. The rising smoke momentarily enveloped his face, and when it cleared, the face that reappeared seemed somewhat unfamiliar to Gu Zheng. "Perhaps you've guessed why I wanted to see you," Du Wei said with a forced smile. Gu Zheng silently awaited confirmation of the premonition that had lingered in her mind. "Very well. I won't beat around the bush. I heard you're planning to petition the Supreme Court regarding Wang Sheng's case. Is that true?" Du Wei asked directly. Although Gu Zheng had anticipated Du Wei's purpose, his bluntness still felt abrupt. Du Wei's hawk eyes scrutinized her intently, appearing confrontational. This evoked a strong sense of aversion in Gu Zheng. Unaccustomed to such scrutiny, she wondered why she should evade it. So, she met Du Wei's gaze directly and countered, "Your information is accurate. What else do you know?" "I also know you found Meng Fei." Gu Zheng had already been suspicious about Meng Fei's second disappearance. Now, hearing Du Wei bring it up, her lawyer's instinct suggested that Meng Fei's disappearance must be connected to Du Wei. "Meng Fei is my sister-in-law. Is there something wrong with me visiting her?" she countered. "I suspect you stopped acknowledging her as your sister-in-law long ago," Du Wei said with a peculiar tone. "Not just Meng Fei. You probably don't even recognize an An as your niece anymore, do you?" Du Wei was clearly trying to provoke her and draw her into an emotional whirlpool, Gu Zheng thought. Over 2 years ago, when she learned from Wang Sheng's online report about the entanglements between her brother Meng Fei and Wu Bozhong, she had indeed been caught in that whirlpool. But after so much time, Gu Zheng had become much calmer. She needed to think and respond not as Zhang Tianyi's sister, but as a lawyer in any situation. So, avoiding Du Wei's question, she asked indirectly, "Recently, I went to see Meng Fei and found she was gone. Or more accurately, had disappeared again. Can you tell me where the mother and daughter went?" Du Wei clearly hadn't expected this question from Gu Zheng and was caught off guard. "How would I know?" he said, avoiding Gu Zheng's gaze while taking several sharp drags on his cigarette, once again concealing his face in grayish-white smoke. When his face reemerged, he adopted a sincere expression and said, "Gu Zheng, we may not be friends, but we're at least from the same hometown. Why play these mind games? Can't we speak frankly?" Gu Zheng detected his implied meaning. "What exactly do you want to say?" she asked. "I'll be straightforward." Du Wei extinguished his cigarette butt, as if making a major decision. "Regarding Wang Sheng's case, I advise you not to pursue the appeal." Gu Zheng thought that the cards were finally on the table. Her eyebrow twitched slightly as she asked, "Why? Isn't an appeal a right granted to defendants by law?" "Come on, Gu Zheng. Don't be as naive as a school child. Throughout this lawsuit, haven't you tasted the flavor of the law yet?" Du Wei snorted derisively. "Let me tell you the truth. If Wang Sheng had been willing to admit his mistake and publicly apologize to my godfather initially, he wouldn't be in this position today. Do you think you can overturn the case based solely on Meng Fei's one-sided account? Her recording has no legal validity, and even if it did, so what? Don't forget that Deputy President Zhuang of the Supreme Court is also a Dongjiang University alumnus and former president of the Provincial High Court. He was Huang Zuping and Niu Ji's teacher. Deputy President Zhuang was the backbone of the legal faction of Dongjiang University. Although Gu Zheng had heard Huang Zuping mention him more than once, she hadn't expected Du Wei to be so brazen. This indicated he was desperate. He was truly devoted to his godfather's cause. "May I understand this as a threat?" Gu Zheng asked coldly. "Not a threat. Advice," Du Wei corrected. "You've already paid a price for this case, being dismissed by Huang Zuping." He looked at Gu Zheng and lowered his voice, speaking confidingly. "Gu Zheng, I used to like you. I don't want to watch you jump into another hole, so let's make a deal." Hearing the word "like" from Du Wei's mouth, Gu Zheng suppressed her disgust and asked, "A deal? What kind of deal?" "I know your Tongui network has been struggling financially. You can't even afford to hire staff. If you're willing, I'll invest 5 million yuan and acquire the website under the Popular Arts Media Group. How does that sound?" Acquisition, investment, 5 million yuan. This was indeed a significant temptation for a small website like Tongyi Network. So, Director Du has come to discuss business. Gu Zheng smiled slightly. And the conditions? The condition is simple. Abandon the Supreme Court appeal, Du Wei said straightforwardly. And if I disagree? She asked. I don't believe you'd be so obstinate, Du Wei said confidently. If you are, you'll not only harm yourself but possibly Wang Sheng too. In less than a year, he'll be released. I was planning to let him return to the group, even reinstating his position. Consider what's at stake. Looking at Du Wei's self-assured face, Gu Zheng again felt a wave of disgust. If previously she had only suspected that Wang Sheng's unfair verdict resulted from behind-the-scenes manipulation, now the manipulator stood completely exposed before her. Yes, it must be him. In Du Wei's face, she saw the arrogance and haughtiness characteristic of someone who controls or manipulates power, playing with everything in the palm of his hand. By comparison, Wang Sheng, still serving his sentence at the reform farm, seemed so weak, insignificant, and isolated. At that moment, Gu Zheng felt that the deal Du Wei proposed was an insult to her. Accepting it would negate all her efforts on Wang Sheng's case and effectively admit that both Wang Sheng and her deceased brother Zhang Tianyi were truly guilty. Thinking this, Gu Zheng recalled Wang Sheng's eyes, one with a single eyelid, one with a double eyelid, filled with confusion and childlike innocence. She suddenly stood up from the sofa and said with dignified defiance, "I'm sorry, but I may have to disappoint you." With that, she turned and strode out of the Rochester private room. Du Wei was momentarily stunned before reacting, shouting after her, "Gu Zheng, don't force my hand! You'll regret this!" 2. Intimidation and Threats. A series of strange incidents occurred shortly after Gu Zheng's meeting with Du Wei. First, the Tongyi Network suddenly suffered a hacker attack. Multiple articles on the homepage were corrupted with illegal characters and injected with violent and pornographic content. The back-end data was also tampered with. The website's account received numerous mass emails for several consecutive days, each containing only a subject line without content or sender address. Every subject line contained abusive, vulgar, and obscene language directed at her, along with threats and intimidation that exuded a bloody, violent atmosphere. Gu Zheng had only heard about hackers attacking websites but had never experienced it. She was initially flustered but quickly regained her composure. She contacted a network company to help repair the damaged source code while instructing Liang Tian to back up all the website data. Gu Zheng found the sudden attack on the website suspicious. She wondered if it might be related to her recent meeting with Du Wei. This was merely speculation. Out of caution, Gu Zheng did not report the incident to the police. However, another incident occurred just days later. Gu Zheng visited the network company that day to discuss restoring the website's operations. After a full day's work, she was tired, so she ate something simple and went to bed upon returning home. Sometime later, she was suddenly awakened by urgent knocking at her door. Glancing at her phone beside her pillow, she saw it was 12:15 midnight. Who would be looking for her so late? She groggily got up to answer the door, but upon reaching her bedroom doorway, she realized the knocking sound was not right. The initial bang, bang, bang had transformed into boom, boom, boom that didn't sound like someone knocking with their hands, but rather like a sharp implement striking the door. The blows grew increasingly violent, making her scalp tingle as the door seemed to be splitting apart. Gu Zheng's mind cleared instantly. She listened carefully and confirmed this was not knocking. Someone was hacking at her door with a knife. In that moment, Gu Zheng's mind flashed to scenes from horror movies where masked criminals break into homes to rob them. Her body hair stood on end, and her first reaction was to call the police. But when she returned to her bedroom and picked up her phone from beside her pillow, just as she was about to dial, the hacking sounds suddenly stopped. The surroundings returned to the silence of deep night, as if the door hacking had never occurred, as if it had all been her imagination. After a while, Gu Zheng finally summoned the courage to walk from her bedroom to the living room and open the door. The hallway was empty. By the light of the energy-saving corridor lamps, she clearly saw knife marks on her front door. 1, 2, 3, a total of 12 slash marks. Looking at these crisscrossing cuts of varying depths on her door, Gu Zheng recalled the deafening noise and felt her legs weaken with fear, nearly collapsing at her doorstep. Gu Zheng couldn't fall back asleep for the remainder of the night. At first light, she went to find Master Lang, who was in charge of the compound's security. Master Lang was a former soldier previously working as the logistics director at the Provincial Women's Federation. When Gu Zheng reported to the Women's Federation after university graduation, it was Master Lang himself who helped move her belongings from Dongjiang University to the Federation compound. Master Lang was a warm-hearted person who, seeing Gu Zheng was single, had once tried to introduce her to potential boyfriends. After Gu Zheng resigned from the Federation's Rights Protection Center, Master Lang also retired but was rehired to manage the compound's security. When Gu Zheng arrived, Master Lang had just started his shift. He was sitting in the reception room, drinking tea from a stainless steel thermos while reading a copy of the Dongjiang Daily that had just been delivered. Upon hearing about the previous night's incident, he put down his thermos with a thud and exclaimed with wide eyes, "Hacking at doors with knives? That's the kind of thing only gangsters would do." He turned to a nearby security guard and asked, "Xiaoma, you were on duty yesterday. Did you see any suspicious individuals enter the compound?" Xiaoma, a young man who had recently been hired, appeared nervous under Master Lang's stern demeanor. "No," he stammered. Seeing Xiaoma's hesitation, Master Lang clearly didn't believe him. "This kid must have been dozing off, allowing criminals to sneak into the compound," Master Lang said with furrowed brows to Gu Zheng. "Most provincial work unit residential areas have installed security cameras, but our compound still hasn't. I've reported this to leadership numerous times, but it keeps getting delayed. Now something has happened. If we had security cameras, we could immediately identify the culprit and have the police arrest them. How can we investigate now? Fortunately, the criminals didn't break down your door." He then asked Gu Zheng with concern, "Little Gu, have you offended someone who would resort to such violent measures against you?" Seeing her silence, he emphasized, "You must report this to the police immediately. Otherwise, these people might do something even worse next time." Gu Zheng hesitated, again recalling her recent meeting with Du Wei at Jane Eyre Coffee House, wondering whether she should go to the police. While Gu Zheng was still conflicted about reporting the incident, she received a registered letter. The sender's address was a Beijing post office box, with no name provided. She opened the envelope with curiosity to find a single thin sheet of paper inside. Unfolding it, she read, "Attorney Gu, by the time you receive this letter, I will have lost my freedom. Half a month ago, I traveled from Dongjiang to the capital with materials proving serious disciplinary and legal violations by Chen Gang and his son. I intended to report them to the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection, but as soon as I got off the train, 2 men forced me into a van at the station and confined me in a guest house. I later learned these men were officials from the Dongjiang Province Petitioning Bureau's Beijing office, specifically responsible for intercepting petitioners. The guest house is the Bureau's holding facility for petitioners. I don't know when I will regain my freedom. Fortunately, I prepared a contingency plan. Do you remember Xu Ke, whom I mentioned to you? She is my most trusted friend and has copies of the reporting materials. By the way, Xu Ke's real name is Li Hong. Very few people know this secret. She has only told one person. Attorney Gu, I have nowhere else to turn and must ask for your help. You are a person with a sense of justice. Could you help me find Xu Ke, obtain those materials, and make them public? Xu Ke not only has evidence of Chuyun Entertainment Center and the Qian father and son's crimes, but also knows many secrets behind that case you represented over 2 years ago. Xu Ke's phone number, 138 Lu Jia month/day. Gu Zheng stared at the line. By the way, Xu Ke's real name is Li Hong. Very few people know this secret. She has only told one person. And her heart pounded rapidly. 3. Gu Zheng and Xu Ke. Meeting with Xu Ke was not easy for Gu Zheng. After calling several times without an answer, she finally texted, "This is Gu Zheng. Lu Jia asked me to contact you." These 10 simple characters contained a meaning only the two would understand. Xu Ke quickly replied this time, but with only 2 words: received. Guzheng stared at her phone screen as if she didn't recognize the word received, or as if it contained some profound meaning. Was it merely acknowledging receipt of the message, or did it have deeper significance? She pondered over it for quite some time as if deciphering a code or koan, but gained no insight. Finally, she sent another message. "I want to see you immediately." This time, however, she received no response. She couldn't tell whether Xu Ke's coldness stemmed from Liu Jia's letter containing false information or an unwillingness to meet her. Lost in these thoughts, Guzheng remained unsettled throughout the day, frequently checking her phone for messages from Xu Ke. The next morning, before Guzheng had even risen from bed, she heard her phone emit a notification sound from the bedside table. Her foggy mind instantly cleared as she picked up the phone and saw a message from Xu Ke. "I'll be waiting for you at the Phoenix Island Water Park at 5:30 this afternoon." After encountering a series of troubles recently, Guzheng felt somewhat dejected. Now, seeing Xu Ke's message reinvigorated her spirits. Her excitement and anticipation were akin to those of a lover heading to a rendezvous. Indeed, in Guzheng's heart, she had once regarded Xu Ke, Li Hong, as a friend as dear as a lover. How could she not be excited about meeting a long-lost friend? Reflecting on her 4 years as an undergraduate at Dongjiang University, Guzheng could find no friend closer than Li Hong. Li Hong's beauty and talent, coupled with her passionate and romantic nature, shone like a brilliant star in Guzheng's memories, intimately connected with her college years. Without Li Hong, those years would have been considerably dimmer. When they graduated, Li Hong's parents suddenly encountered misfortune, ending her relationship with Lang Tao. Several prestigious central institutions rescinded their offers, transforming her from a princess into a Cinderella. Not only did no reputable organization want her, but even classmates who had previously sought her favor distanced themselves. Aside from Guzheng, no one came to see her off at her departure. Later, Guzheng heard that Li Hong had taken a position at a private school without formal establishment status. She had tried to find her, but Li Hong had already resigned. Whether she remained in Dongjiang or relocated to another city remained unknown. From that point until Guzheng graduated and found work in Dongjiang, spanning over a decade, she never forgot Li Hong. Whenever she considered how someone as exceptional as Li Hong, with her talent and promise of an enviable future, had ultimately met such an unfortunate end, she couldn't help feeling aggrieved on her behalf. On numerous occasions, while riding the bus or walking down the street, Guzheng thought she spotted someone resembling Li Hong and nearly called out her name. But instantly, the person who looked like Li Hong would vanish. Standing amid the bustling streets, Guzheng would momentarily lose herself, recalling the scene in Lover's Forest where Li Hong recited a poem written for Lang Tao. "I always believe you won't abandon me. Always believe that you love me as deeply as I love you. Once the clouds drift away from the sky of my heart, you will come to me without hesitation, reviving my cooling heart." After these moments of reverie, her heart would fill with sadness and longing. "Oh, Li Hong, my friend, where are you? Will we ever meet again in this lifetime?" Guzheng had called out in her heart countless times, experiencing a desolation and loneliness similar to when she lost her mother as a child and later received news of her brother's death. Shortly after noon, Guzheng set out. When she arrived on Phoenix Island, it was only 2:30 p.m., a full 3 hours before the appointed time with Xu Ke. Phoenix Island was not unfamiliar to Guzheng. Once, as a member of the Provincial Young Lawyers Association, she had stayed 2 nights at the Phoenix Island Resort Hotel for a conference. Since being designated an international tourism development zone, Phoenix Island had become the recreational backyard for citizens of the provincial capital, Dongjiang City. During holidays, many people made Phoenix Island their primary destination, and numerous provincial institutions and enterprises regularly organized employee outings there. While at Junding Law Firm, Gu Zheng had visited Phoenix Island with colleagues on multiple occasions. The water park was situated near the Phoenix Island Resort Hotel and the Sightseeing Farm, part of a tourism development project from recent years that Gu Zheng had not previously visited. Beetle-shaped boats of various sizes, accommodating 2, 3, or 4 passengers, were docked on the lake. Additional attractions included airship surfing and water skydiving. Perhaps because it wasn't a holiday, the park had few visitors, with the ticket booth nearly deserted except for a young mother buying a balloon for her child. Gu Zheng sat down on a bench in the shaded area near the water park entrance and took out a book from her bag. It was a popular science fiction novel called The Three-Body Problem. Gu Zheng first read this novel in Science Fiction World magazine. Since her university days, she had been accustomed to reading pure literature and considered science fiction as literary garbage fabricated by second-rate writers, far from serious literature. However, The Three-Body Problem changed her perspective. For a time, she not only read it daily like following a TV series, but also joined a Three-Body Problem QQ group, where she frequently discussed the plot and characters, nearly becoming a fervent enthusiast. She was captivated by the novel's fantastical plot, distinctive characters, and bold imagination, particularly drawn to the fate of the female protagonist, Ye Wenjie. Ye Wenjie, an astrophysicist and ETO commander, was the soul of the Three-Body Problem. After experiencing the disillusionment of ideals and witnessing the evil in human nature firsthand, she began contemplating humanity's future, believing that moral awakening could only be achieved through forces beyond humanity. The absence of a dedication target plunged her into a spiritual crisis. Still, she encountered an unprecedented opportunity in her lonely spiritual wandering, the only consolation for her years of repetitive work without results. This opportunity could actualize the theory she had contemplated for years: reforming humanity. She seized this opportunity, transformed it into her ideal, and found in it both meaning for her existence and a dedicatory goal worth any sacrifice. In Gu Zheng's eyes, Ye Wenjie was a radical idealist. She was extremely rational, decisive, intelligent, and principled as a female scientist. Although pessimistic about humanity, considering human nature inherently evil, she remained active and even radical in her principles of action. She believed that the blemished human nature could be altered, specifically by technologically superior aliens, and that human destiny could be rewritten, justifying any sacrifice. These qualities made her the most complex, contradictory, and controversial character in the Three-Body Problem. Some readers called her an angel, others a demon, leading to endless debates in the QQ group. Gu Zheng believed that although Ye Wenjie's attempt to have the Trisolarans reform human morality after arriving on Earth might require enormous sacrifices from all humanity, her goal was not anti-human or societal revenge. On the contrary, it aimed to save humanity, spiritually. Though her methods were extreme and effectively produced anti-human consequences, her initial intentions couldn't be denied. Gu Zheng not only felt an emotional resonance with Ye Wenjie, but also shared her pessimistic view of humanity. However, she lacked Ye Wenjie's courage to stand against all of humanity. The QQ group was divided into the Luoji faction and the Ye Wenjie faction, with most supporting Luoji and only a minority supporting Ye Wenjie. Gu Zheng's views naturally faced opposition from the majority, prompting her to leave the group in frustration. When the print version of The Three-Body Problem was published, Gu Zheng immediately purchased a set and began rereading it. Recently, she carried the novel wherever she went, reading a few pages whenever possible. Now she opened the book and continued from where she had left off. Ye Wenjie's heart beat arduously, like a guitar string about to snap. Darkness began to flood her vision, but she persisted with the last energy of her life. Before everything sank into eternal darkness, she wanted to see the sunset at Red Coast Base again. Each time she read this description of Ye Wenjie's final moments, Gu Zheng felt extraordinarily heavy-hearted and sad. as if Ye Wenjie were not a fictional character but her own relative or friend. She involuntarily lowered her head, pressing her face against the book, her thoughts drifting as she entered a state of spiritual transcendence. Great novels possess this magical power, like wizards temporarily releasing readers from reality into a purely spiritual realm, an experience she had previously had while reading Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. After an indeterminate time, the playful sounds of a parent and child pulled Guzheng back to reality. She looked up to see the mother and daughter who had earlier been buying a balloon at the ticket booth now running toward the shaded area. The little girl ran ahead holding a Teletubbies balloon while her mother chased behind. As she ran, the little girl emitted crisp, bell-like laughter, the balloon leaping and dancing in the air with her movements. When she reached Guzheng, the girl stopped, staring with large eyes, her mouth forming a small circle, her gaze bright like two luminous jewels. Guzheng thought the little girl resembled her niece An, and the Teletubbies balloon was almost identical to the one she had given An for her first birthday. She felt momentarily disoriented. Just then, the mother caught up, nearly grabbing her daughter, but the little girl nimbly escaped like a rabbit and ran away. The mother joyfully chased after her, a smile of happiness illuminating her face. Watching the mother and daughter recede, Guzheng thought again of Mengfei and An. They and her brother must have experienced such happiness a few years ago. Yet within a few years, one had died and the others had scattered. As for herself, she had been alone before and remained alone now. Nothing to possess, nothing to lose. As Guzheng sat on the lakeside bench, lost in thought, 3 hours passed imperceptibly. At the appointed time, she closed The 3-Body Problem, placed it in her bag, and stood up from the bench, looking around but seeing no sign of Xu Ke. Just as she was beginning to wonder, her phone emitted a notification sound. She picked it up to find a message on the screen. "I'm on boat number 9 at dock number 2. Guzheng wondered silently when Xu Ke had purchased the ticket, as she had been sitting near the ticket booth the entire time. She felt like she had entered a spy drama, becoming an underground operative meeting her handler. This thought suddenly excited her. Dock number 2 wasn't far from the ticket hall, just past a vending kiosk and a row of flower beds. Standing on the shore, Guzheng saw about a dozen small beetle-shaped boats moored at the dock. Without much effort, she located boat number 9 at the end of a row. A woman sat aboard, dressed entirely in black. Black dress, black hair, and dark sunglasses, entirely clothed in darkness. Although the sunglasses concealed most of her face, making recognition difficult, Guzheng immediately identified her from that innate air of elegant coldness as Li Hong, whom she hadn't seen since graduation and who had left no trace. Like an electric current, a powerful surge of excitement made Guzheng's body involuntarily tremble, almost preventing her from walking. She jumped onto the pontoon and hurried toward the boat, but her unsteady gait caused her to lose balance. Fortunately, a pontoon worker steadied her, preventing her from falling into the lake. Without even pausing to say thank you, she called out to the black-clad woman on the boat. "Xu Ke! No, Li Hong! Is it really you?" "Hello, Guzheng." Li Hong's voice was low, even somewhat hoarse, entirely unlike the vibrant, lyrical mezzo-soprano that Guzheng remembered, as if it couldn't possibly come from the same person. She sounded so cold, showing no excitement or joy at meeting a long-separated friend. Her nun-like black attire contrasted completely with Guzheng's memory of someone who had always preferred a vibrant red flowing dress, swaying gracefully and radiating charm. The two images seemed like different people entirely. Guzheng wondered if she had mistaken the person's identity and was tempted to remove the other's large sunglasses to see Li Hong's eyes, windows to the soul, especially Li Hong's beautiful animated eyes. However, the other showed no intention of removing her glasses, which clearly violated social etiquette. As Guzheng considered this, Li Hong extended her hand, a hand with skin like congealed cream and fingers as long and slender as scallion shoots, resembling an exquisite panpipe. Gu Zheng remembered Li Hong's hand. Her heart surged with warmth as she grasped it, feeling its coolness like holding a piece of ice. Gu Zheng again directed her gaze toward that beautiful, cold face, with eyes concealed behind dark glasses. Li Hong looked at her expressionlessly and said, devoid of emotional coloration, "The wind and waves are strong on the lake. Put on a life jacket." She handed Gu Zheng a light red life jacket from the boat cabin. Gu Zheng hesitated momentarily before accepting it and putting it on. Then, the boat began to glide toward the center of Niangzi Lake. 4. Niangzi Lake. June was typically the hottest season for Niangzi Lake, but several days of continuous rain had recently lowered the temperature from above 30 degrees to below 30. As it was already afternoon, the hottest hours had passed and the humid breeze carried the refreshing coolness of the lake water, bringing a slight chill. Visibility was excellent, with the sky above a luminous blue as if freshly washed, radiating an almost transparent luster. The lake's surface was calm, sparkling with light, and scattered boats glided across the mirror-like surface like fish emerging from water, creating beautiful patterns of ripples. The boat operated like a paddle boat, similar to a water wheel. By pedaling, the axis rotation drove a spiral propeller underwater, propelling the boat forward. Li Hong sat in the driver's seat, skillfully operating the pedals. Gu Zheng sat opposite her, their faces less than a meter apart. As the shore grew more distant, Gu Zheng felt as if the entire world had reduced to just her and Li Hong. She gazed intently at Li Hong, and with the slight rocking of the boat, that familiar yet strange face seemed to move closer and farther away, alternately clear and blurred. In a moment of reverie, Gu Zheng's mind flashed back to the Lang Taosha magazine editorial office on the 5th floor of Osmanthus building, where she and Li Hong had lived for over half a semester. She seemed to see the wind chime hanging at the dormitory entrance, a shell chime Li Hong had brought from home. Each time they entered or left, Li Hong would deliberately brush her hand across the shells, plucking a guitar string, filling the room with melodious chiming sounds. In summer, the rooftop terrace became their favorite place to cool off. Sometimes they would each take a novel or poetry collection, reading and discussing their thoughts. Gu Zheng had finished Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse on that terrace. Li Hong had finished it first, and they had engaged in endless debates about certain plot elements, reciting their favorite passages together. Gu Zheng remembered a summer night when they were reading a novel, and it suddenly began to rain. Large raindrops rolled down from the leaves of the plane trees on the rooftop, falling onto them, but they paid no attention, continuing to read, entranced, not even noticing their clothes getting soaked. Now, Gu Zheng seemed to hear Li Hong's recitation in her ears, that lyrical mezzo-soprano voice with perfect diction and intonation, reaching professional broadcasting quality. When alone, one tends toward inanimate things. Trees, streams, flowers, feeling they express one's heart, feeling they become part of oneself, feeling they understand, in some sense becoming one with them, feeling such a restless tenderness as if admiring one's own reflection. Gu Zheng's eyes blurred with emotion. By now, the boat had reached the center of the lake. The sun had descended further west, and its light was no longer as harsh, having softened somewhat. The lake was like Sleeping Beauty, tranquil and gentle. Occasionally, a fish would splash above the water's surface, executing a somersault like an acrobat before diving back underneath. The surrounding scenery presented itself like a giant holographic projection. To the east was the thin, ink line-like Niangzi District Town dock. To the north was the water park they had just departed from, where the beetle-shaped boats now looked like tiny tadpoles. To the west was a small island shaped like a bull's horn, and following the direction that horn pointed was the southern end of Phoenix Island. Li Hong removed her feet from the pedals and turned her gaze toward the distance, suddenly pointing to the small island. See that small island? It's called Horn Island. About a decade ago, a female teacher named Tian Fang from Phoenix Island Elementary School drowned in a tornado while returning from teaching the children at Horn Island's branch school. Her grave, though it hardly qualifies as one, being just a small mound of earth, isn't far from that villa area. I once went to lay flowers there. Gu Zheng made a soft sound of acknowledgement and looked in the direction Li Hong was pointing. She could vaguely see the southern end of Phoenix Island, along the lakeshore, where a large cluster of European-style villas stood like blooming flowers, diverse and beautiful. "That's the recently completed artists' village," Li Hong said softly, staring at the villa district. Gu Zheng didn't understand why Li Hong was telling her these things. She only wanted to open her heart to Li Hong as they had in their university days, to talk freely about everything. Yet from the moment they met, Li Hong had been so cold, like those inscrutable dark glasses covering half her face, her manner keeping people at a distance, as if they weren't once intimate friends but mere strangers passing by. Looking at Li Hong sitting so close yet feeling so far, Gu Zheng wanted to rush over, grasp her hands, and pour out all the words held in her heart. "Li Hong, can't you tell me how you've spent these years?" Gu Zheng finally couldn't contain herself and asked in a trembling voice. "How did you transform from Li Hong to Xu Ke?" She felt on the verge of tears, but Li Hong remained expressionless, speaking in a businesslike, professional tone. "Let's discuss Lujia's matter now. Isn't she the reason you came to find me?" Only then did Gu Zheng recall the true purpose of meeting Li Hong today. Without this reminder, she would have almost forgotten. She rubbed her reddening eyes and murmured, "Yes, yes." Li Hong's lips showed a barely perceptible smile as she took out a plastic-sealed document envelope from her bag and handed it to Gu Zheng. Gu Zheng hesitated before accepting it, and just as she was about to open it, Li Hong stopped her. "Don't open it now. Look through it carefully when you get back." Li Hong's voice was not loud, but it carried a commanding tone. Gu Zheng instinctively withdrew her hand. "What's inside?" she asked. "In addition to all of Lujia's materials denouncing Qian Gang and his son, there are things that will interest you," Li Hong replied. "Interest me?" Gu Zheng didn't immediately understand. "The defamation case you handled a few years ago when old Wu sued Wang Sheng." "Old Wu?" Gu Zheng was momentarily confused before understanding. "You mean Wu Bozhong, the master?" Li Hong nodded, pointing to the document envelope. "It's all in there." As she spoke, she cautiously surveyed the open lake. Gu Zheng again thought of scenes from spy dramas where underground party members exchange intelligence. Though Li Hong's words were as concise as a telegram, Gu Zheng already sensed their weight. She clutched the document envelope tightly to her chest, staring at Li Hong's sunglasses-covered face, speechless for a long moment. Realizing Gu Zheng was watching her, Li Hong turned her face away toward the distant lake scenery. "I've been following you since you started representing Lu Jia and Wang Sheng," she said in a calm tone. "After you left the law firm to start the Tongguai network, I frequently visited your website." Gu Zheng's heart trembled slightly. "Then why didn't you contact me?" she asked, almost accusingly. "Because I knew you would come find me." Li Hong's lips again showed that barely perceptible smile. Li Hong displayed such confidence that Gu Zheng couldn't help but recall the red-dressed young woman from their university days, who had spoken with the same confident tone and demeanor. "I've handed the materials to you. How to handle them is your decision," Li Hong said. "I once sent these materials anonymously to relevant provincial departments, but they were like stones sinking into the sea. No response whatsoever." Li Hong's words sounded like an entreaty. Gu Zheng recalled Lu Jia's letter, and the shadow that had hung over her heart these past days grew heavier. Like Li Hong, she turned her face toward the lake. Not far away in the sky appeared a flock of ospreys. They flapped their wings, calling repeatedly as they flew lower and closer until their feathers were clearly visible. Their feathers burned like flames in the sunlight, brilliantly reflecting the light from the lake's surface. The osprey's cry sounds similar to the storm petrel's, reminiscent of Gorky's The Song of the Storm Petrel. Li Hong said to herself. Gorky's The Song of the Storm Petrel. Guzheng pondered the meaning behind these words. She had never heard a storm petrel's call and was puzzled when Li Hong said, "Let's go back." With that, Li Hong turned the boat around and began pedaling again, directing the vessel back toward the dock. A gentle breeze carried the mingled scent of water plants and fish. The water and sky merged into one color, as if only this boat remained in the universe, drifting with the wind. Gu Jing gazed at the face across from her, still unable to discern any expression. Though they were physically close, she felt as if a mountain stood between them, or as if they were thousands of miles apart. An indescribable wave of sadness washed over her. In her heart, she said to Li Hong, "Dear friend, couldn't you remove your sunglasses and let me see your eyes?" Li Hong, do you truly have nothing you want to tell me? 5. Li Hong's Monologue, or A Letter to Guzheng, 1. Please forgive me, Guzheng. I cannot remove my sunglasses. I fear you might be startled upon seeing my eyes. During university, you praised my eyes more than once, saying they were like film star Zhe Fang's, classic phoenix eyes. You also said my temperament resembled Zhi Fang's, not from the Song of Youth, but from early spring in February and Two Stage Sisters. Beautiful, bright, lively, passionate, romantic, all positive attributes. You said someone like me was born to be a star, that from the moment of my birth, fate had laid a red carpet filled with flowers and applause at my feet. It wasn't just you who said this. Many around me said the same. I believed it too. But after my parents' troubles, everything changed. As employment units unanimously tore up contracts they had signed with me, Lang Tao suddenly ended our relationship, and many classmates who had always greeted me with smiles suddenly distanced themselves, becoming like strangers. When I left campus at graduation, only you saw me off. I was discarded by fate like a pile of garbage. From the moment I stepped outside the university gates, I was like a kite with its string cut, floating in the wind, awaiting the battering of storms. By then, my father had been formally sentenced, life imprisonment, which for someone like my father was equivalent to a death sentence. Before he was sent to the labor reform farm, I visited him. Since my father's sudden removal from our home, this was my first time seeing him. In my eyes, my father had always been a handsome, tall man, cultured and refined, humorous and witty, not at all like the leader of a major state-owned enterprise managing tens of thousands of people and hundreds of billions in assets, but rather like an erudite university professor. I always felt I looked like my father from personality to appearance. As a daughter, I was proud to have inherited my father's quality genes. But now my father was completely transformed. His once black hair was gone, his head shaved, his body emaciated beyond recognition, his complexion pale, his gaze vacant. He looked many years older, and I could barely recognize him. Perhaps my father had become taciturn from being confined in prison too long. During the prescribed 15-minute visit, he barely spoke and didn't even ask about my post-graduation plans. Before his troubles, this had been his greatest concern. At that time, 2 central-level units had expressed interest in me. One a state agency, the other a news organization. My father hoped I would join the news organization. When I asked why, he said government agencies were too complex and unsuitable for a girl like me. My father also said that his ideal profession had been journalism in his youth, but unexpectedly, he stopped mid-sentence. Looking at my father's expressionless face, I suddenly recalled his unfinished statement and seemed to understand something. My father may have already sensed that misfortune was approaching at that moment. Thinking of this, I wanted to embrace my father and cry. As the visiting time ended, my father suddenly called out, "Li Hong, take good care of your mother," as if imparting a final instruction. My heart trembled as I looked at him, my eyes immediately reddening. Tears glistened in my father's eyes, too. His mouth moved as if wanting to tell me something, but glancing at the nearby prison guard, his Adam's apple bobbed, and he swallowed his words. Watching my father's receding figure as the guard escorted him back to his cell, I struggled mightily not to break down sobbing. I never imagined that would be the last time I saw my father. 6 months later, I received the terrible news of my father's suicide in prison. At that time, my mother was still under isolated investigation. As the financial director of my father's factory, relevant authorities consistently identified her as participating in the #1 state enterprise corruption case led by my father. According to regulations, individuals under isolated investigation cannot meet with anyone. But shortly after my father's suicide, out of humanitarian considerations, the authorities allowed me to meet with my mother once. My mother was detained in a modest guest house with guards at the door. When I was brought in, my mother was sitting at a desk the size of a middle school student's, with a stack of papers before her, pen in hand, lost in thought like a student taking an exam. When I entered, she didn't look up until the guard loudly announced, "Xu Ruoyu, your daughter is here to see you." Only then did she look up at me as if awakening from a dream, seemingly not recognizing me. "Mom, it's me, Li Hong. Don't you recognize me?" "Gisi?" I called out. "Li Hong, what are you doing here?" My mother stared wide-eyed, shouting as if angry, "Who let you come? Get out!" As she shouted, she waved her hands, trying to push me out like shooing away flies. Her strength was tremendous, instantly pushing me to the doorway and attempting to close the door. I gripped the door frame and said with a tearful voice, "Mom, Dad is dead." Hearing my words, my mother froze as if struck by lightning. After a moment, she turned around, slowly walked back to the desk, and collapsed into the chair like a puddle of mud. With her back to me, I couldn't see her face, but from her violently shaking shoulders, I knew she was weeping. My mother was a petite woman, and at that moment, in my eyes, she seemed so fragile, like a child. I walked behind her, gently stroking her shoulders, and under my touch, her body gradually stopped shuddering. At that moment, I suddenly felt like I had become an adult. That day, I spent the entire afternoon with my mother. By the time I left, her emotions had calmed and she no longer treated me like a stranger, but she still kept urging me to leave, speaking incoherently, often in a delirious state. "You should go. I need to write my confession materials," she said, pointing to the paper before her. I saw several names written on the paper. The handwriting was very sloppy. My mother's writing had always been neat and delicate, reflecting her temperament, but now the names I saw were almost illegible. With difficulty, I made out 2 names. When my mother saw me deciphering those names, she suddenly crumpled the paper in her hand, tearing at it while saying, "Don't look, this is secret, don't tell anyone, or it will mean beheading." She held up her finger and made a shushing sound. "If I don't confess thoroughly, they won't let me go, nor will they let you go. Leave quickly and never come back to this place." My mother looked at me with terror, suddenly lowering her voice. "Li Hong, do you know why your father committed suicide?" I was startled and asked, "Why?" My mother glanced nervously at the door, her voice dropping even lower. "If your father didn't die, someone above would have to die. If your father didn't die, someone would never sleep soundly, and the same goes for me. Though they force me to write confessions every day, some people fear most that I'll write down everything I know. If I write it all out, they're finished. So I must die too, like your father. Otherwise, it will implicate you. Only when both your father and I are dead can you live on." My mother's words were disjointed, incoherent, and without logic, like the ravings of a mental patient. I realized my mother's mind was no longer entirely sound. Not long after, my mother was indeed sent to a mental hospital. A year later, she hanged herself. At the time, I was still working as an announcer at that private university. After hearing of my mother's death, I didn't eat for an entire day. My mind kept revolving around those incoherent words my mother had spoken to me, as if trying to find some little-known secret within them. It was on that day that I made a momentous decision. You asked why I didn't contact you, and I answered it was because I knew you would eventually come looking for me. But that wasn't the real reason. The real reason is that the Li Hong you once knew has died, and the person you see now is Xu Ke. Guzheng, do you understand my meaning? I know you've heard some things about Chuyun Entertainment from Liu Jia, but what you don't know is that's where I began transforming from Li Hong into Xu Ke. Before that, I experienced another brief romance. I don't even know if it qualifies as romance. You know, girls like me never lack for suitors. Moreover, I had just been abandoned by Lang Tao. My father had died. My mother was still imprisoned, and fate had tossed me like rubbish into a private school. My mind was filled with thoughts of self-destruction. It was then that a university student named Ba Dong fell in love with me. He resembled Fei Xiang. During university, Fei Xiang was my favorite celebrity, and for this reason alone, I accepted Ba Dong. Coincidentally, Ba Dong was your fellow townsman, also from Chuju, a place called Pai Town. I remember you telling me you grew up in a small town, perhaps you even knew each other? But I didn't ask in detail. You know, I grew up in a big city and had little concept of small towns. Ba Dong wasn't exceptional. Students at that private school hadn't reached the college entrance exam cutoff, and Ba Dong had repeated several times. Previously, I might not have even glanced at such a young man, but he possessed a rare talent among young men, a special inclination and ability for making money. In middle school, Ba Dong had already leveraged his father's connections to complete a business deal independently. Ba Dong's father was a brick factory director who had presumably pocketed a considerable amount of money, all spent on his son. Ba Dong also had an inexplicable confidence, always believing he would become a wealthy man someday. I myself don't understand why, after experiencing someone as excellent as Lang Tao, I would like such a money-obsessed fellow. Nevertheless, Ba Dong truly loved me. Not ordinary love, but obsessive love. By then, we were living together in a rented apartment near the school, frequently dining out, shopping, and visiting dance halls. The monthly expenses were substantial. Ba Dong had previously managed comfortably on his father's monthly allowance, but he often couldn't make ends meet after moving in with me. To sustain our expenses, Ba Dong would wholesale popular music tapes at the audio-visual market during his spare time or weekends, then sell them at various universities in the city. He was indeed a business genius and loved me so much that I had almost decided to stay with him seriously. But just then, my mother hanged herself in the mental hospital. Before that, I had visited her regularly, even planning that after marrying Ba Dong, I would take my mother out of the mental hospital to live with us. But now my dream was shattered, broken like glass across the floor. Again, I recalled those words my mother had spoken to me and those sloppily written names on the paper. I felt it all contained a suggestion, as if telling me the reason for my father's life sentence and suicide. Clearly, my mother knew the reason, and her suicide, like my father's, meant it became an eternal secret. Their unanimous choice of suicide was to protect me, their only daughter. Realizing this, I was seized by intense unease and guilt. No, I couldn't continue living so heartlessly. I had to find the culprits who ultimately drove my parents to suicide and the secrets behind it. So, I suddenly broke up with Ba Dong and started dating a high-ranking official's son named Zhang Xiaobo, leaving that private school. As Liu Jia told you, what happened afterward was that I became the manager of Chuyun Entertainment's nightclub. Zhang Xiaobo owned the Chuyun Group. Our public relationship was as husband and wife, though we never formally married. At most, we were lovers. Regarding the Chuyun Group, what Liu Jia told you was just the tip of the iceberg, which I also learned gradually. True to his appearance, Zhang Xiaobo knew nothing about business beyond eating, drinking, and carousing. The reason Chuyun Group became Dongjiang City's largest entertainment industry in just a few short years wasn't due to Zhang Xiaobo's business acumen, but because of its extraordinary background. When Chuyun was first established, its registered capital was a mere $1,000,000. The shareholders were all children of high-ranking officials who partied with Zhang Xiaobo. Previously, apart from carousing together, they had no legitimate occupations. Still, After jointly establishing Chuyun Company, leveraging their respective fathers' connections, the company's capital quickly increased from 1 million yuan to over 100 million. Some didn't even invest but provided gratuitous sponsorships and donations. These investors or sponsors were all well-known provincial enterprises, both private and state-owned, as well as leaders from provincial direct units and major commercial banks. Chuyun's business quickly boomed, and in just a few short years, not only did its output value double annually, but it also became the leader in Dongjiang's entertainment industry. Initially, I was puzzled. Chuyun Group's daily turnover wasn't high, only ranking as middle tier in Dongjiang's entertainment industry, yet the group's assets continued to skyrocket annually. Soon, I discovered an astounding secret. Chuyun's main consumers were the group's shareholders and those who had provided sponsorships and donations. Chuyun issued them each a VIP card, divided into black gold and white gold categories. Black gold cardholders were shareholders, white gold cardholders were sponsors and donors. VIPs received 50 to 60% discounts on all consumption at Chuyun, some up to 70%, but the invoices were for the full amount. These VIPs were all heads of major enterprises and leaders of provincial direct units, meaning that when they consumed at Chuyun, not only did they not pay out of pocket, but they could also pocket the discounted portion through reimbursements. But that wasn't all. Beyond ordinary consumption, such as listening to music, dancing, and using saunas at the nightclub, Chuyun Entertainment also provided VIPs with a special service: Mandarin duck baths. These Mandarin duck baths were actually sexual services. The bath companions were specially recruited, some selected from the nightclub's dancers, others recruited from female art students at colleges and universities, or performers from song and dance troupes under the pretext of recruiting artists and fashion models. Requirements for appearance, skin, figure, and temperament were all very high. After becoming the nightclub manager, I was specifically responsible for recruiting and training these bath companions, and Liu Jia was one of those I recruited. I recognized several familiar names among the VIP cardholders who frequently patronized Chuyun nightclub. They, like my father before, bore titles such as renowned entrepreneur and appeared in newspapers and on television. I carefully studied these names, but didn't find the two names my mother had written on that paper. Beyond the white gold and black gold VIP cards, there was also a pure gold card, but these were issued in very limited quantities, less than 10 in total. I once overheard Zhang Xiaobo mention that the pure gold cards were custom-made for a few provincial high officials with special relationships to Chuyun. Despite being the nightclub manager for quite some time, I had never seen a pure gold card. I vaguely felt that the people I was looking for might be among these pure gold card holders. Realizing this, I felt both nervous and excited. That day finally arrived. While checking the day's settlement accounts at the nightclub's cashier counter, I saw a consumption record for a pure gold card. My heart skipped a beat, and striving to appear calm, I asked the cashier to find the cardholder's charge slip. The consumption amount was 8,000 yuan, and the bath companion was a female student recently recruited from the provincial art school, not yet 18. The flamboyant signature was very familiar, frequently appearing in newspapers and on television, and I immediately recognized it as one of the names my mother had written on that paper. Staring at the name, I felt my blood surge upward, my breathing becoming rapid. The cashier asked with surprise, "Manager, what's wrong?" I mumbled evasively, "Nothing," and then took a photo of the charge slip with my phone. After some time, another pure gold cardholder appeared at Chuyun nightclub. This person's name also frequently appeared in newspapers and on television, and it was highly similar to the other name my mother had written on the paper. Soon afterward, I anonymously sent the consumption vouchers of these two pure gold cardholders and those of other black and white gold VIP cardholders at Chuyun to the relevant authorities. Later, Chuyun was shut down, and Zhang Xiaobo, along with several black and white gold VIP cardholders, was arrested. This was the Chuyun group case that caused such a stir in Dongjiang years ago. But I never saw news of those 2 pure gold card holders being investigated. 6. Li Hong's Monologue, or A Letter to Gu Zheng. 2. Gu Zheng, are you surprised by what you've read so far? Yes, the artistically inclined Li Hong you once knew is dead. The current Xu Ke has transformed into a Count of Monte Cristo-style avenger, seeking revenge against those seemingly respectable yet morally depraved individuals. Goodness has never been a match for evil. Only by fighting evil with evil can justice be served. In other words, I will not reject any means if they can bring wrongdoers to justice. I do this not only for my deceased parents, but for all who have been humiliated and harmed. After shutting down the Chuyun group, I knew Zhang Xiaobo would eventually suspect me. Once he identified me as the whistleblower, he would undoubtedly seek revenge by any means necessary. Even if sentenced, his circle of associates wouldn't let me go. To avoid potential retaliation, I moved out of the home my parents had left me. I rented an apartment in a remote neighborhood, severing all connections with former friends and turning off my phone. After living in isolation for several months, one day I bought a new SIM card and turned on my phone. Just as I was about to transfer my contacts from the old card to the new one, a call came through. I had intended to reject it, but I accidentally pressed the answer button. Can you guess who was calling? I think you've already guessed. Indeed, it was Du Wei. He knew Zhang Xiaobo and had visited Chuyun several times, always telling the staff he was my friend and requesting discounts. Without a VIP card, he wasn't eligible for discounts according to the rules, and I never showed him any favor. I hadn't expected him to call again. I could have hung up immediately, but perhaps due to my prolonged isolation or curiosity about why Du Wei persistently pursued me, I didn't end the call. Gu Zheng, I know you've always disliked Du Wei. You told me he once pursued you and, under the pretext of inviting you to see a movie, lured you to Lover's Forest with indecent intentions. That night, you tearfully confided in me, saying your brother was blind to let someone like Du Wei look after you. I know that Du Wei and that graduate student Wang Sheng were friends with your brother, all from Chuzhou. I've always despised that man, you repeatedly told me. Women's impressions of men often rely on intuition. Intuitively, I also had no good impression of Du Wei, though I couldn't articulate exactly why. I just felt he carried too much of a street-smart demeanor, not like someone in the arts, but rather like a businessman. His mouth full of flowery words, especially those hawk eyes of his that seemed to undress women like an X-ray. I detested such men, and if he hadn't been your fellow townsman, I wouldn't have given him the time of day. When I published Du Wei's photography in Lang Taosha, it was partly out of consideration for you, and partly because he had secured sponsorship. Strong public relations ability was perhaps Du Wei's only strength. That graduate student, Wang Sheng, with one single eyelid and one double eyelid, wrote quite well, though he was full of scholarly air, as innocent as a child, a completely different type from Du Wei. Initially, I thought Wang Sheng was pursuing you, and honestly, you two seemed quite compatible. I never imagined Du Wei had designs on you in secret. He should have looked in a mirror. But Gu Zheng, this very man whom we both despised from the bottom of our hearts, within just a few years after graduating from Dongjiang University's photography program, was thriving in Dongjiang Province's cultural circle and even became the chairman of the popular arts Mudia group. The first time Du Wei came to Chuyun, I was present. Apart from seeking sponsorship, he also wanted to get close to Zhang Xiaobo, dreaming of entering Chuyun's inner circle. Zhang Xiaobo once revealed to me that Du Wei's backing was a senior provincial leader named Song Qiankun. My mother had previously told me that after my father graduated from university, he was assigned to the Dongjiang Provincial Party Committee office, where he was highly appreciated by a certain leader who selected him and another colleague as key training targets. My father's former leader was Song Qiankun, father of the female writer Song Xiaofan, whom we all know, and that colleague was Luo Baochang, the current governor of Dongjiang Province. Gu Zheng, you probably couldn't have imagined Du Wei's call inviting me to become an assistant to his godfather, Wu Bozhong. At that time, Wu Bozhong was already a famous Yuanji Gong master in Dongjiang province. His newly established Yuanji Cultural Research Association had just opened on Phoenix Island and was recruiting staff. Phoenix Island, remote from Dongjiang City and isolated on Niangzi Lake, was indeed attractive to me, as I was avoiding Zhang Xiaobo's revenge. Moreover, my vengeance mission was not yet complete, and I needed to open a new battlefield. So I accepted Du Wei's invitation and became Wu Bozhong's assistant and the Secretary General of the Yuanji Cultural Research Association. Only after arriving at Phoenix Island did I learn that this so-called international tourism island, touted by some media as Dongjiang City's backyard garden, was nominally developed and managed jointly by Niangzi District and several enterprises, including the Popular Arts Media Group, but was actually controlled by Du Wei and Wu Bozhong. The Popular Arts Media Group and Yuanji Cultural Research Association held shares in almost every tourism project on the island. Wu Bozhong was nominally the Yuanji Cultural Research Association president, but the actual manipulator was Du Wei. Initially, I didn't understand the mystery behind this, but later, when I learned of their true relationship, everything became clear. Gu Zheng, we both underestimated Du Wei. This man was not only adept at currying favor with the powerful, opportunistically advancing and flattering his way up, with a ruthless determination to achieve his goals at any cost, but he was also exceptionally shrewd in managing connections and market investments, far beyond ordinary people. He embodied almost all the evils of human nature: greed, selfishness, baseness, sordidness, reminding me of those ambitious provincial youths in Balzac's works who would stop at nothing to enter Parisian high society. In Du Wei, I saw the characters of both adventurers and gamblers. At that time, Wu Bozhong held classes at Wugong Shrine, taught Yuanji Gong, recruited members nationwide, and attracted many celebrities, government officials, and entrepreneurs. Based on identity and membership fee levels, members were classified into 3 types: gold badge members, silver badge members, and regular members. Regular members were ordinary followers. Gold badge members held the highest rank, and in addition to receiving one-on-one transmission of energy secrets from Wu Bozhong, also enjoyed customized services such as yin-yang dual cultivation. This so-called yin-yang dual cultivation involved bathing and sleeping with beautiful women or handsome men trained in Yuanji Gong, similar to the legendary practice of harvesting yin to supplement yang, essentially just sexual services under a different name. From the membership system to sexual services, it was almost identical to Chuyun's marketing model. Du Wei's true purpose was finding me. He wanted me to bring the resources I managed at Chuyun Entertainment to Wugong Shrine. Thus, I resumed my old profession on Phoenix Island, doing the same dirty work I had done at Chuyun. Those beautiful women and handsome men who had scattered after Chuyun was shut down were recruited back by me, transformed into Yuanji Gong dual cultivation models at Wugong Shrine. Later, I also became the manager of the nightclub at Phoenix Island Resort Hotel, and those beautiful women and handsome men under my supervision simultaneously became artists at the nightclub. The resort hotel and Wugong Shrine were essentially one entity sharing resources. My outstanding performance and work capabilities won high praise from Wu Bozhong. Ah, Gu Zheng, now I must tell you about this man. In many people's eyes, Wu Bozhong was a famous Yuanji Gong master, proficient in yin-yang hexagrams and Huang Lao's secret manuals, knowledgeable in astronomy and geography, capable of retrieving objects through empty space and treating difficult cases such as infertility. He was not only revered as a deity by the people of Phoenix Island, but also attracted many celebrities, business owners, and retired officials from the provincial capital Dongjiang and from Beijing, who came to become his disciples. Once, Song Qiankun brought his wife and daughter. On that occasion, I was almost recognized by Song Xiaofan. Regarding Wu Bozhong's background, no one on the island could speak clearly. Some said he came from a traditional Chinese medicine family, possessed extraordinary medical skills, had served as a military doctor in both the Kuomintang and Communist armies, and had treated Sung Mei-ling, Chiang Kai-shek's wife. Others claimed he was a descendant of Empress Wu Zetian, who had practiced Yuan-ji Gong in the mountains of Pigu until he opened his celestial eye and became the inheritor of Yuan-ji Gong. Yet others said he was merely a traveling doctor selling snake oil medicines, who had once run an unlicensed clinic where someone died and fled to Phoenix Island to escape legal sanctions. Opinions varied widely, and Wu Bozhong himself maintained a deep silence on the matter. Even regarding his age, some said he was nearly 100 years old, evidenced by his white hair and youthful face, while others maintained he was just over 60 and still fertile. Moreover, Wu Bozhong's face showed few wrinkles, leading some to earnestly declare that he had cultivated the art of longevity and achieved immortality. These legends once deceived me. If you had seen Wu Bozhong's dignified appearance when lecturing at Wu Gong Shrine, you might have believed them too. But this was all a facade. Before his followers, he was a solemn, eloquent master, but privately, he was a typical beast in human clothing. Every dual cultivation model I recruited had to undergo his interview, which meant sleeping with him. He occupied an entire floor at Wugong Shrine, which contained an alchemy room, meditation room, reception room, and bedroom, and was decorated more luxuriously than a palace. Apart from lecturing to followers and meeting celebrities, business owners, and officials from all over to pay homage, he would lock himself in the room to practice qigong and alchemy. He wasn't practicing any Yuan-ji Gong, but rather a type of Tongzi Gong designed to enhance male sexual prowess. His alchemy served the same purpose. According to Heisan's boast, after taking Wu Bozhong's pills, an 80-year-old man could outperform an 18-year-old in bed. Heisan's words were quite credible. He was Wu Bozhong's bodyguard and security chief at Wugong Shrine, responsible for Wu Bozhong's daily life and travel arrangements. I had also heard that when Wu Bozhong first arrived on Phoenix Island, he had slept with many women under the pretext of treating infertility, leaving behind many illegitimate children, including the child of village chief Ni Changhai's wife, Xiao Man. That child had eyes identical to Wu Bozhong's hawk-like gaze. Whose offspring could it be if not his? The pills Wu Bozhong concocted were available only to Gold Badge members and himself. Ordinary people couldn't buy them even with money. After taking the pills, Wu Bozhong would have Heisan find dual cultivation models from downstairs to accompany him in practicing his yin harvesting technique, sometimes one, sometimes two, always selecting the most beautiful and sensual. Initially, Wu Bozhong had Heisan select these models behind my back, but later he became completely open about it. Every dual cultivation model at Wugong Shrine had been filtered through his hands in less than half a year like a sieve. One evening after work, Heisan suddenly came to my room saying that the master wanted me to go upstairs to report on my work. I wondered silently what the master could want so late, and as I muttered to myself, I walked toward the main building. A courtyard separated the main building and the backyard, and the third floor where Wu Bozhong lived had a special passageway guarded by security personnel. Without permission, no one could go up, including me. In all my time at Wugong Shrine, I only went up there a few times. That night, led by Heisan, I went up to the third floor through that special passage. Between the third floor and the fourth floor, there was an iron door. As soon as I entered, Heisan locked the iron door behind me with a clang. I felt nervous but pressed on. Previously, I had always met Wu Bozhong in the alchemy room, meditation room, or reception room, but now it was night, and those rooms were all tightly closed, with only the bedroom door ajar, emitting a dim light. I knocked gently, and a lazy voice came from inside. "Come in." I pushed open the door and entered to find Wu Bozhong naked, with only a towel around his waist, lying on a bed over 2 meters wide in the center of the bedroom. Having just bathed, his body was flushed red, like a giant baby in the lamplight. My heart jolted, and I turned to leave, but the door was suddenly slammed shut behind me. Banging on it was futile. At this moment, Wu Bozhong began to laugh loudly behind me. That laughter, heard at night, was like an owl's cry, raising goosebumps. "Li Hong, you're no virgin, why so shy?" When I heard the name Li Hong, I involuntarily trembled. It had been a long time since anyone had called me Li Hong, and no one knew this name except Du Wei on Phoenix Island. As I pondered this, Wu Bozhong approached with an agility incongruous with his age, grabbed me, and stripped off my clothes as easily as peeling bamboo shoots. Before I could react, I was thrown onto the large bed. I cried out in alarm and instinctively pulled up the blanket to cover my naked body, but he immediately yanked it away. "Don't move. I won't do anything. Just want to look at you." He panted heavily, his breath reeking of alcohol. He was clearly drunk. As he spoke, he leaned in, eyes wide, staring at me like searchlights. "I just want to see what kind of woman was cherished by Deputy District Chief Lang Tao. Oh no, I should say Deputy Minister Lang. This neck, these breasts, these thighs," he muttered dreamily while sniffing my body. "Indeed exquisite. No wonder Du Wei looks at you with such hunger every time. Truly a rare beauty. But I can't touch you, and neither can Du Wei. This fellow has craved you for a long time, but must restrain himself. We have so many delectable dual cultivation models on Phoenix Island and at Wugong Shrine, any of whom could be taken at will, but you alone cannot be touched, not even with a fingertip. I still have big plans. One must first control what's between one's legs to achieve great things. Today, I just wanted to test if I could control myself. In my youth, I ruined my future precisely because I couldn't control myself. Otherwise, with my qualifications, I might have become a general or high-ranking official. I can't let Du Wei repeat my mistakes. Guzheng, I've finally mentioned Lang Tao to you. More than a decade ago, I erased this person from my heart. He was once my idol, my love, my everything. In my eyes, he was erudite, talented, vibrant, perfect in both spirit and body, like a male god sculpted by Michelangelo. Since meeting him, the flames of love had burned fiercely in my heart, as if to consume me. I fell hopelessly in love with him, a love that was frenzied, more frenzied than Hannah Arendt's love for Heidegger. As long as I had him, nothing else mattered. My parents' troubles had already seriously affected my post-graduation assignment during that period. I had originally thought that love would help me through this most difficult time, but just then, he suddenly terminated our relationship, ruthlessly abandoning me. I was like a building hit by a cannonball, collapsing into ruins. From then on, I felt no love for him, only hatred. As a popular song goes, the deeper the love, the deeper the hate. This hatred fermented slowly, like a virus infecting my soul, transforming into hatred for the world and becoming a driving force in my quest to avenge my parents. When I heard Lang Tao's name from Wu Bozhong's mouth, I felt a surge of excitement, the feeling a hunter experiences upon spotting their prey. Do you now understand the real reason I accepted Du Wei's invitation to become Wu Bozhong's assistant? I had long known that everything Du Wei and Wu Bozhong were doing on Phoenix Island was supported by Lang Tao. Without Lang Tao's strong backing, they could never have transformed a remote small island into today's prosperous international tourist destination in just a few short years. Lang Tao leveraged this achievement to advance from Deputy District Chief of Niangzi to the high position of Deputy Minister and then Minister of the Provincial Party Committee's Propaganda Department. Meanwhile, Du Wei had used Phoenix Island as a platform to weave a vast network of interests, paving the way for the popular arts media group's listing and his own career advancement. To achieve this goal, Du Wei had spared no effort. He not only used his godfather Wu Bozhong's Wugong Shrine as a social platform to connect with various dignitaries and celebrities, but also transformed the Phoenix Island Resort Hotel into a leisure and entertainment center for provincial and municipal leaders. He had prepared an entire floor at the hotel, with over a dozen rooms designed to presidential suite standards, each equipped with a pure silver bathtub. In addition, Du Wei had formed an art troupe, with performers recruited from various provincial and municipal art groups. Nominally performing for hotel guests, they were actually bath companions prepared for the leaders. The first director of the art troupe was your nominal sister-in-law, Meng Fei. Her role was identical to mine at the Chuyun nightclub. Gu Zheng, I may have hurt you when I say Meng Fei is your nominal sister-in-law, but I must tell you that Meng Fei had long been Wu Bozhong's lover, and An was the child of her and Wu Bozhong. In other words, most of the content in that report Wang Sheng posted online was true. I'm certain that Wang Sheng did not fabricate the report, but indeed came from your brother, Zhang Tianyi's hand. Because the year before your brother's death, he came to Wugong Shrine looking for me. During that visit, he repeatedly told me that Wu Bozhong was a big fraud who not only cheated him out of money but also slept with his wife, and that Meng Fei's position as director was essentially that of a madam, his tone suggesting he knew the true nature of the art troupe. Your brother was Wu Bozhong's senior disciple, as well as Du Wei's good friend and partner, and usually had an extraordinary relationship with them. When he suddenly spoke these words, I was very puzzled. But seeing him speaking incoherently, probably drunk, I didn't pay much attention, placating him with a few words before sending him away. Soon after, I heard that your brother had fallen out with Wu Bozhong and Du Wei, and later I heard of your brother's death. Gu Zheng, I can tell you now that everything after Meng Fei and An left the art troupe, including Meng Fei living with her child in that white 2-story building in Niangzi district, was arranged by Wu Bozhong and Du Wei. When they learned you were still preparing to petition the Supreme Court regarding Wang Sheng's case, they secretly relocated Meng Fei and her daughter from the urban area of Niangzi district before you could notarize the evidence. I don't know where they were moved to because He-san was responsible for relocating them. He-san is Wu Bozhong and Du Wei's most trusted person. He has now not only replaced the drowned Nie Changhai as the party secretary of Phoenix Island and become the general manager of the resort hotel, but has also married Nie Changhai's wife, Xiao Man, and adopted Xiao Man and Wu Bozhong's illegitimate son. Du Wei and Wu Bozhong carefully arranged all this. They thought that by relocating Meng Fei, Wang Sheng's case couldn't be appealed, and no one would know about Wu Bozhong and the art troupe's affairs. But what they didn't anticipate was that the new director was a sister of mine from Chuyun named Cheng Lei, a former performer from the Dongjiang art troupe. After I came to Phoenix Island, I recruited her into the resort hotel art troupe, and after Meng Fei's departure, she was promoted to art troupe director. I recently obtained a list of provincial and municipal leaders from Cheng Lei who received bath companion services at the resort hotel. From that list, beyond Lang Tao, I again saw the 2 names I had previously seen at Chuyun nightclub. I also saw these same names on the list of property owners in the Phoenix Island Artists Village. The Artists Village is the villa district I pointed out to you on Niangzi Lake. It's a provincial-level cultural project developed on Phoenix Island in recent years, led by the Provincial Party Committee's Propaganda Department and jointly developed by the Provincial Culture Department, Niangzi District Government, and the Popular Arts Media Group. Lang Tao is the project's general director, and Du Wei is the project's executive director. All land on Phoenix Island was originally agricultural land. The ownership rights for every tourism project on the island are jointly held through agreements between the Tourism Island Management Aruha and developers. The Artists' Village villas are the same. However, to enhance the Artists' Village's appeal, Du Wei, with Lang Tao's support, had the Niangzi district government convene a special office meeting to illegally convert agricultural land into commercial land, transforming the Artists' Village villas from small property right homes into large property right homes eligible for market transactions. This increased the villa's value from just tens of thousands of yuan to over 3 million yuan, nearly 100-fold increase. This essentially gifted a villa to those artists residing in the Artists' Village. Initially, I didn't understand why Lang Tao and Du Wei would undertake such a money-losing project. Later, when I saw from the Artists' Village villa owners list that, apart from some artists, the other owners highly overlapped with the Popular Arts Media Group's shareholders. Among some familiar names, I also saw them on the list Cheng Lei provided of leaders who frequently vacationed at the resort hotel. While I was puzzling over not seeing Lang Tao's name, one day Du Wei suddenly called me, saying Minister Lang was staying at the resort hotel and wanted to see me. His tone was somewhat mysterious, as if sending me to an imperial audience, treating me like a gift for Lang Tao. During that period, Lang Tao had just been promoted from deputy minister to minister, and in Du Wei's eyes, he was probably equivalent to an emperor. Before this, I had met Lang Tao several times on different occasions. Each time, I pretended not to know him, desperately controlling myself, fearing I might succumb to the urge to spit at or berate that sanctimonious face. This would be our first private meeting. I didn't know why this man, long dead in my heart, wanted to see me. I was somewhat nervous, worried I might do something inappropriate. I never imagined that Lang Tao's purpose for meeting me at the resort hotel that day was to give me a property deed for an artist's village villa. I clearly saw my name written on that deed. I saw a sincere expression on Lang Tao's still handsome face and almost softened, but a strong hatred quickly took control. I knew I was facing not just a man who had abandoned me, but also the invisible, intangible force behind him. My parents, as members of this force, had been mercilessly sacrificed by them. They had not only destroyed my parents, but also me, and would destroy many more. I absolutely could not show any softness. That day, returning to my dormitory at Wugong Shrine from the hotel, I removed my sunglasses and gazed at my eyes in the bathroom mirror. Heavens, those eyes were so grim and cold, emitting a knife-like cold light. It was a hatred suppressed too long in my heart, like a poisoned dagger with lethal power. I couldn't help but shudder, my body curling into a ball as I covered my eyes with both hands. Gu Zheng, my dear friend, do you now understand why I'm unwilling to remove my sunglasses and let you see my eyes? I am a person living in darkness, while you, like Wang Sheng, still hold love and light in your heart. In my mind, you remain as pure as during our university days, spotless like an aestheticist poem, like our irretrievable youthful years. I don't want the hatred within me to infect you like a virus, to be consumed by the darkness in your heart as I have been. Yet I must tell you what I know and even give you these materials. Am I contradicting myself? Now Heisan's informants are everywhere on the island, and news of my meeting with you today will quickly reach Du Wei and Wu Bozhang's ears. You know what this means for me, but I have no choice. In the materials I've given you, in addition to what I've mentioned above, there is also evidence of illegal activities by Chen Gang and his son. I give them to you not only to fulfill Liu Jie's entrustment, but also to honor my promise to myself. How to handle them is your decision. Chapter 4. 1. The Master's Will. A few days ago, when Wu Bozhang discovered that his assistant Xu Ke had been absent from work for 2 consecutive days without requesting leave, he sensed something was amiss. He instructed Heisan to contact Xu Ke promptly. However, despite searching throughout Phoenix Island, Heisan's people could find no trace of Xu Ke, and her mobile phone remained powered off. A few days earlier, someone had seen a woman wearing sunglasses board the ferry and leave Phoenix Island. On the island, Xu Ke was typically the only person who wore sunglasses. Wu Bozhang felt increasingly uneasy. He instructed Heisan to thoroughly investigate Xu Ke's movements over the past few days. Early this morning, Heisan hurried to Wugong Shrine to report that Xu Ke had met with an unfamiliar woman at the water park a few days earlier. The two had rented a boat and rowed to the center of the lake, where they remained for an extended time, their behavior notably secretive.
Have you identified the woman? Wu Bozhang asked.
We traced her through the water park surveillance cameras, Heisan stammered. She's a female lawyer named Gu Zheng. Wu Bozhang was eating breakfast at the time. Due to his secluded meditation practice, he had recently confined himself to his meditation room, with all 3 daily meals delivered to him. Upon hearing Heisan's words, Wu Bozhang's expression changed dramatically. His hand trembled, spilling the camel milk he had just been drinking across the floor and his chest. Heisan quickly moved to help him clean up, saying, "Should I have someone take care of that female lawyer?"
It's too late,
Wu Bozhang replied weakly. Now, alone in his meditation room, he stared at the black and white Taiji diagram on the opposite wall as a sense of foreboding suddenly overcame him. All along, Wu Bozhong had essentially treated Xu Ke as his chief steward, entrusting her with large and small matters. Xu Ke had not betrayed this trust. She had managed Wugong Shrine and the UNG Cultural Research Association meticulously, rarely making mistakes. For a woman who had once managed the Chuyun nightclub, Xu Ke's conduct was nearly impeccable, and she possessed an almost perfect beauty. Wu Bozhong had never dared to harbor improper thoughts toward this woman who had once captured Lang Tao's heart and whom Lang Tao could never forget. Not only did he restrain himself, but he constantly reminded Du Wei to exercise self-control as well. As long as Xu Ke remained at Wugong Shrine, Lang Tao would always maintain his interest in Phoenix Island, just as he could never let go of Xu Ke. Wu Bozhong had never encountered such a woman before, which inevitably aroused his curiosity. This curiosity gradually relaxed the vigilance Wu Bozhong had never relaxed with anyone else. But now, Xu Ke had suddenly disappeared. Before her disappearance, Xu Ke had met secretly with that lawyer named Gu Zheng, who was preparing to petition the Supreme Court on behalf of Wang Sheng, currently serving his sentence at a labor reform farm. Previously, Du Wei had assured him that the matter of the petition had been resolved. However, the secret meeting between Xu Ke and Gu Zheng indicated that not only had the issue not been resolved, but it had become more dangerous. Several years ago, when the terminally ill Zhang Tianyi had instructed Du Wei's subordinate Wang Sheng to expose his affair with Meng Fei online, Wu Bozhong had been thrust into the spotlight of public opinion, experiencing the most severe public relations crisis since his arrival on the island. Although he later sued Wang Sheng for defamation, sending him to prison and thereby preventing the crisis from further spreading to Du Wei, Wu Bozhong had still suffered significant damage. Since then, he had rarely appeared in public, living in seclusion and conducting his affairs with much greater discretion. As public opinion gradually subsided, he believed the crisis had completely passed. Even though that female lawyer Gu Zheng was still encouraging Wang Sheng to petition the Supreme Court, he hadn't taken it too seriously. "Godfather, don't worry. These two small fry can't make big waves. I'll handle it in no time," Du Wei had assured him, pounding his chest. With Du Wei's current status and capabilities, this was certainly no empty boast. Just 2 months ago, at the Provincial Federation of Literary and Art Circles election conference, Du Wei had been smoothly elected as the new chairman of the Dongjiang Provincial Federation of Literary and Art Circles. That evening, when Wu Bozhong watched the television news showing Du Wei seated on the conference presidium alongside the provincial party secretary, governor, and propaganda department minister Lang Tao and other provincial leaders, he had been so moved he nearly shed tears, as if the person delivering the closing remarks at the conference wasn't Du Wei but himself. But it was at this time that Xu Ke disappeared. No, not disappeared, fled. Everything Xu Ke had diligently done at Wugong Shrine over these years was merely a facade to achieve some unmentionable purpose. He and Du Wei had been completely deceived. What did Xu Ke and Gu Zheng discuss in their meeting? Would she reveal everything she knew? If that truly happened, everything he and Du Wei had painstakingly built on Phoenix Island over so many years would dissolve into nothing. Wu Bozhong realized that a crisis far more severe than the lawsuit from 2 years ago was approaching. He didn't want to think further. He wasn't concerned for himself, but for Du Wei's currently flourishing career. No matter what, he couldn't allow his life's work to be destroyed by Xu Ke. He recalled the promise he had made to Miss John on her deathbed. Now was the time to fulfill that promise, Wu Bozhong thought. He contemplated death. If he died, the evidence and clues Xu Ke possessed that could harm Du Wei would be severed. This was the only choice to protect Du Wei. When Wu Bozhong made this decision, his mind flashed back to the small courtyard house on Wenjing Street outside Chuju's South Gate several decades ago, to the scene of his first meeting with Miss John. He saw Du Fu, shrewd all his life but confused at the end, only realizing on his deathbed that Du Wei wasn't his biological son. He even saw the scene of Du Fu pacing at the moat before drowning himself. Now, Du Wei had reached the pinnacle of his career. He could face Miss John with a clear conscience. The day after making this decision, in the meditation room where he usually practiced the Yuan Ji Great Method, Wu Bozhong conveyed 3 final wishes to He San. First, to take care of Meng Fei and her daughter. Second, after his death, to have Xiaoman and Nie Changhai's nominal son Nie Xiaohei change his surname to Wu, with He San as Wu Xiaohei's guardian, enjoying full ownership rights to the villa in the artist's village under his name. Third, the third wish wasn't written down but was to be verbally communicated by He San to Du Wei. Place everything on me. After hearing Wu Bozhong's oral testament, He San fell to his knees with a thud, kowtowing repeatedly. Master, you cannot leave. With you gone, who will manage everything on the island? But Wu Bozhong, having consumed the pill, was already silent, his hands pressed together in prayer position, seated on the meditation cushion where he usually practiced the Yuan Ji Great Method, passing away quietly as if falling asleep. Du Wei received He San's call and rushed to Phoenix Island immediately. By then, the great master's remains had been moved from the meditation cushion to the bedroom. He saw his godfather dressed in the Tang-style clothes he often wore in life, peacefully resting on the large bed in the center of the bedroom, his expression serene, as if asleep. Chairman Du, the master achieved transcendence in the meditation room. He San, wearing mourning garments, stood respectfully beside him and said reverently to Du Wei, "Before ascending to heaven, he left a message for you." Chairman was Du Wei's recently acquired title, one he wasn't yet accustomed to, especially coming from the barely educated He San. Nani. It seemed somewhat inappropriate. He frowned slightly. What message did my godfather leave? He San leaned close to Du Wei and whispered, "Place everything on me." Hearing these words, Du Wei's body trembled. As if afraid others might overhear, he quickly glanced around and, seeing no one else in the room besides himself and He San, felt somewhat relieved. He turned his gaze back to Wu Bozhong's remains, his eyes suddenly blurring as uncontrollable grief welled up. Finally, he fell to his knees before his godfather and began to wail. Du Wei cried with extraordinary sorrow. Even when his mother had passed away years before, he hadn't wept like this. In his mind flashed scenes from his childhood, alternating between his father Du Fu and his godfather Wu Bozhong, the 2 men's shadows appearing like flashback shots in a film. From childhood to adulthood, he had grown up under the protection and shelter of these 2 men, progressing step by step from an individual photographer outside Chuju's South Gate to a student in Dongjiang University's photography program, a reporter at the Chuju station of the Dongjiang Daily, the director of the Great River Arts magazine, the general manager and chairman of the Great River Arts Mudia Group, the vice chairman and chairman of the Dongjiang Province Photographers Association, and until recently, the chairman of the Dongjiang Province Federation of Literary and Art Circles, sitting with provincial leaders in the front row of the conference presidium. This was Du Wei's moment of glory, an honor attributable to his mother and Du Fu and Wu Bozhong, his 2 fathers. But now his godfather had suddenly left him. The reason his godfather had chosen death voluntarily, like everything else he had done on Phoenix Island, was still for him, attempting to shield him from an impending storm. His godfather's martyr-like heroism moved Du Wei. Only for one's own flesh and blood could someone make such a sacrifice. Years ago, when his mother had told him on her deathbed that Du Fu wasn't his biological father, that Wu Bozhong was, yet he had never changed his form of address to call him father. Wu Bozhong hadn't wanted him to change, saying that it wouldn't benefit him if their father-son relationship became known. Thinking of this, Du Wei suddenly felt regretful. He gazed at Wu Bozhong's remains, tears again blurring his vision, and chokingly called out once, "Father!" In fact, He San had informed Du Wei of Xu Ke's disappearance several days earlier, but he hadn't imagined the situation to be so dire. Perhaps Xu Ke had simply gone on a trip and forgotten to notify anyone. Du Wei had harbored such hopeful thinking. Now, hearing He-san relay his godfather's parting words, he sensed an unprecedented danger approaching, a danger he couldn't withstand through his own efforts alone. Indeed, while driving back to the provincial capital from Phoenix Island, Du Wei received a call from Lang Tao's secretary, Xiao Li. "Chairman Du, have you seen the Tongui network? No? Then quickly check online." Hearing this, Du Wei's heart skipped a beat. The Tongui network was that small website operated by Gu Zhang. With Secretary Xiao suddenly mentioning it in his call, Du Wei sensed something was amiss. He couldn't inquire further while driving, so he quickly pulled over, opened his laptop, and typed Tongui network. Upon logging into the homepage, he was stunned by several large banner headlines. Without reading the full content, Du Wei closed his computer and sat in the car for a while in a daze, his mind filled with the names Xu Ke and Li Hong. This woman had stayed on Phoenix Island for so many years, always dutiful and diligent. Du Wei had originally thought that bringing her to his side would not only utilize her talents to help his godfather, but also strengthen his relationship with Lang Tao. Only now did he realize he had made a foolish mistake. Du Wei recalled the recently popular TV drama The Yongzheng Dynasty, which featured a character named Ren Beian, who, using his position in the imperial court, secretly collected confidential information on high officials, including their private lives and power money transactions, waiting for the right moment to expose it, triggering a massive shock in officialdom. Heavens, Xu Ke was practically a living female Ren Beian. Du Wei suddenly thought of Cheng Lei, the new director of the resort's art troupe, also recruited by Xu Ke. Cheng Lei's beauty and talents were no less impressive than Meng Fei's. He had originally planned to introduce her to Lang Tao, but seeing his lack of interest, had pursued her himself. Recently, Du Wei had frequently spent nights with Cheng Lei at the resort, with his wife Jiang Lili calling several times to confront him, which he had barely managed to deflect. Could Cheng Lei also be a mole planted by Xu Ke? As soon as this thought emerged, Du Wei involuntarily shuddered. Striving to control his inner panic, he composed himself and called Lang Tao. But after several attempts, no one answered. Just days ago, they had attended an important literary and artistic community meeting together, where Lang Tao had treated him with the same warmth and intimacy as before, even half-jokingly calling him Chairman Du. Previously, whenever Du Wei called Lang Tao, no matter how busy, he had never declined the call. Was he unwilling or unable to answer? Knowing that Lang Tao, with his intellectual background, always acted cautiously, Du Wei realized that not answering his call at this time was certainly not without reason, and he again sensed the gravity of the situation. Increasingly anxious, he considered calling Xiao Li to inquire. Since placing Xiao Li's sister in a position at the Great River Arts Muhdia Group, their relationship had grown closer. For any significant news, without Du Wei even asking, Xiao Li would proactively inform him. Xiao Li's call connected quickly. Upon hearing that Lang Tao wasn't answering Du Wei's calls, he said, "Chairman Du, don't call the minister now. He's gone to see Governor Luo and hasn't returned yet." Sensing Du Wei's anxiety, he added, "Don't worry too much. No matter how big the issue, the leadership will find a way to resolve it. Minister Lang has already instructed the Internet Monitoring Department, and the Tongui network will likely be shut down soon." Hearing this, Du Wei's tension eased somewhat. He pulled a tissue from the box beside the driver's seat, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and repeatedly said, "That's good, that's good." "However, the matter may not be that simple," Xiao Li's voice continued through the phone. "I heard from Secretary Hu that Secretary Chen Yimeng has already taken notice of this issue." Upon hearing Xiao Li's words, Du Wei's briefly calmed heart began to race again. As the dialing tone of Xiao Li hanging up sounded in his ear, he put down his phone and continued sitting in the car. He recalled the lawsuit from a few years ago, which, despite its magnitude, he had ultimately resolved single-handedly. But this sudden storm was undoubtedly much larger than the previous one, with an incomparably wider scope of implications. Could he navigate this crisis as successfully as he had before? In the past 2 years, the Chen whirlwind, stirred up by Provincial Party Secretary Chen Yiming in Dongjiang, despite encountering some resistance, showed no signs of abating. After the Dongjiang merger project was halted, several senior executives had been investigated, and even Vitsu Governor Yu had been held accountable. Would Chen Yiming use this matter to make a statement? Du Wei dared not think further. He felt like a drowning person, sinking deeper and deeper into a rapid whirlpool. He suddenly thought of Ba Dong in Beijing and decided to call him. 2. Things about Dongjiang. Ba Dong had just returned from the United States and was leaving the capital airport, having gotten into the Volvo that little Ma had brought to pick him up, when he received a text message from his wife, Yan Bei. Something's happened. Seeing these 3 words, he was startled, thinking something had happened to Yan Bei. He immediately called her, and upon hearing his wife's voice, he anxiously asked, "What happened to you?" "It's not me," Yan Bei said indifferently over the phone. "It's Dongjiang province." Ba Dong was momentarily stunned, not immediately comprehending. His mind was somewhat sluggish after just returning to China and adjusting to the time difference. Dongjiang. The popular arts Muhtia Group, Phoenix Island, Wugong Shrine, Master Wu, and that artist's village, they've all imploded. Yan Bei recited like reading a menu, the words hitting Ba Dong's forehead like coins, leaving him dazed, especially that last sentence, which made his heart race. "What do you mean imploded? Explain clearly." "See for yourself online. Tongui Network, it's all there," Yan Bei said impatiently. "It's all because of what your friend Du Wei did. Ask him if our villa is gone too." Seeing Yan Bei only concerned about the villa they had essentially received for free, Ba Dong didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he had no time to address this. He quickly opened his Microsoft notebook computer and typed Tongyi.com into the Google search engine. The screen immediately displayed the page of this small website he had never heard of before, with several eye-catching headlines prominently displayed on the homepage. According to an anonymous source, the Phoenix Island Resort Hotel under the popular arts Mudia Group has been sexually bribing high officials, with deep involvement from the Yuanji Cultural Research Association's Wugong Shrine. Small property rights housing illegally converted to full property rights housing, multiple provincial leaders purchasing Phoenix Island artists' village villas through proxies and other means. UNG Gong Master Wu Bozhong dies mysteriously, whistleblower's whereabouts unknown. Multiple luxury properties owned by former Dongjiang Province Development and Reform Commission Director Qian Wenlong and his son Qian Gang exposed, suspected of unexplained enormous wealth. These headlines exploded like a series of bombs in Ba Dong's mind. He felt as if he were sitting on an airplane at 10,000 meters, experiencing the nausea of rapid descent due to weightlessness, his heart leaping into his throat. Of course, unlike Yan Bei, he wasn't concerned about the villa on Phoenix Island, but rather worried that this sudden conflagration would spread to the popular arts Mudia Group. This wasn't just because Hurricane Investment had played a key role in the group's successful listing, but also because before the IPO, Hong Tai-hung had personally drafted a list and had him give it to Chairman Du Wei. Most people on that list were spouses, children, or relatives of high officials from various important central departments, and they were also the connections Hong Tai-hung relied upon most. Later, most people on that list became shareholders of the popular arts Mudia Group. If this list of original shareholders were exposed, it wouldn't just be about a few villas, but could implicate Hong Tai-hung and potentially have even broader ramifications. Ba Dong recognized the gravity of the situation. He wanted to report to Hong Tai-hung immediately, but to be prudent, he decided to verify the situation with Du Wei first. However, Du Wei had already called him before he could make the call. "Director Ba, we have a small problem." "Small problem? It looks like everything's turned upside down." Having heard Du Wei's statement, Ba Dong's temper flared, and he spoke in an accusatory tone. What's the deal with that Tongyi network? What's its background, huh? It has no background whatsoever, just an ordinary small website, Du Wei stammered over the phone. The founder is a female lawyer named Gu Zheng, who previously defended Wang Sheng. Ba Dong had heard about the case between Wang Sheng and Du Wei's godfather Wu Bozhong years ago, and asked puzzledly, wasn't that case long settled with Wang Sheng sentenced? Yes, it was settled, but they're now appealing to the Supreme Court. Ba Dong still didn't quite understand. Who is this whistleblower mentioned online whose whereabouts are unknown? What's her relationship with Gu Zheng? Don't rush. Let me explain slowly, Du Wei said evasively. The whistleblower is Xu Ke, who conspired with Gu Zheng to orchestrate this. Xu Ke's real name is Li Hong, and she was good friends with Gu Zheng during their time at Dongjiang University, which, you know. Ba Dong detected something suggestive in Du Wei's words, as if he was about to mention his past romantic relationship with Li Hong. He impatiently interrupted. Fine, don't digress. Get to the main point. All right, I'll be brief. Du Wei paused, then continued. Li Hong's father was formerly a leader of a large state-owned enterprise in Dongjiang, sentenced to life imprisonment for embezzlement and committed suicide in prison. Li Hong's mother was the financial director of her father's enterprise, suspected of embezzlement, and suddenly went insane during the investigation, was sent to a mental hospital, and later hanged herself. Li Hong suspected her parents had been framed and had been seeking the person who framed them to avenge her parents. Xu Ke first worked at Chuyun Entertainment and later came to Wugong Shrine as my godfather's assistant, but she was actually a mole. She hid her true intentions very deeply, deceiving both me and my godfather. Don't mention your godfather anymore. Ba Dong had long heard that Wu Bozhong was Du Wei's biological father and almost said this out loud. But remembering the online reports of Wu Bozhong's mysterious death, he swallowed his words and snapped irritably, What are your plans? Don't the senior leaders have any countermeasures? Oh, of course they do. Du Wei, clearly embarrassed after Ba Dong's rebuke, began to stammer. Xu Ke, no Li Hong, is involved in the crimes of provocation and defamation. The Provincial Public Security Department has already issued a warrant for her arrest. As Li Hong's accomplice, Gu Zheng will certainly not escape either. Wait, I just checked, and the Tongyi network has already been shut down. Take a look online. Ba Dong refreshed the web page and indeed saw a line of text on the Tongyi network page. This website is suspected of illegal activities and has been closed. Ba Dong's anxiety finally eased somewhat. Just as he was about to hang up, Du Wei suddenly said, Director Ba, if you know the whereabouts of Xu Ke, no Li Hong, let me know. What do you mean? How would I know her whereabouts? Ba Dong was taken aback and wanted to ask further, but Du Wei had already hung up. Hearing the beeping sound from his phone, he carefully contemplated Du Wei's words for quite some time, but couldn't figure out what the other meant. Du Wei knew about his previous relationship with Li Hong. Could he be suspecting? The more Ba Dong pondered, the more confused he became. After a couple of days, he tried to call Du Wei for clarification, but after several attempts, the phone remained powered off. Sensing something was amiss, he suspected that new developments had occurred in the Dongjiang situation. Thus, he decided to visit Miyun. When Ba Dong arrived in Miyun and met Hong Taihang at the mansion, he discovered that the Dongjiang situation was far more serious than he had imagined. Moreover, Hong Taihang's understanding of the situation was much more accurate and comprehensive than what he had heard, different from what Du Wei had told him days earlier. The Phoenix Island Resort Hotel had been ordered to suspend operations for rectification. Relevant departments in Dongjiang Province had begun a special investigation into the Phoenix Island Artists Village. The Provincial Party Committee's propaganda department, together with the Provincial Securities Regulatory Bureau, had formed a joint investigation team that had already entered the Popular Arts Muhdia Group and the Provincial Federation of Literary and Art Circles. Chairman and Dongjiang Provincial Federation of Literary and Art Circles President Du Wei had been suspended and was under investigation. No wonder Du Wei's phone was unreachable, Ba Dong thought numbly. As usual during his visits to the mansion, Ba Dong would accompany Hong Tai-hung for a stroll in the yard. Now, pushing the wheelchair, he moved slowly through the yard overgrown with summer grass, hearing Hong Tai-hung say calmly, "What was bound to come has come. Didn't they also halt Dongjiang before?" His casual tone seemed to be comforting Ba Dong. "It's nothing extraordinary. At worst, Hurricane Investment will divest all its shares in the popular arts media group." Seeing Hong Tai-hung's composed demeanor despite his own worries, Ba Dong recalled that Hong had maintained a similar attitude when the Dongjiang and Duku Company merger was halted. Boss Hong was truly Boss Hong, unfazed by such small waves. Ba Dong couldn't help but feel a sincere reverence for this man confined to a wheelchair. "It seems that Chen Whirlwind won't relent until he's backed me into a corner." Hong Tai-hung's lips showed a trace of a cold smile. Ba Dong naturally understood the meaning of this statement. Chen Whirlwind referred to Dongjiang Provincial Party Secretary Chen Yiming, Hong Tai-hung's former comrade from their days in the Northern Wilderness Production and Construction Corps. Hong Tai-hung had originally hoped that after Chen Yiming assumed the role of Dongjiang Provincial Party Secretary, he would help his old brother. But from the halting of the Dongjiang and Duku Company merger to the current Phoenix Island and Popular Arts Media Group affair, Chen Yiming had been consistently confronting Hong Tai-hung, which obviously made him feel disrespected, causing his anger to flare whenever Chen Yiming's name was mentioned. Seeing Hong Tai-hung's expression of humiliated rage, Ba Dong dared not speak. To comfort him, he changed the subject to, "Do you think the Yanshan Forum will proceed as scheduled?" Hong Tai-hung, still immersed in his previous emotion of anger, seemed not to have heard Ba Dong's words. He propelled the wheelchair forward with his hands, accelerating for some distance before stopping and slowly saying, "Let's wait and see." From that subdued tone, Ba Dong sensed that Hong Tai-hung was not at ease. It seemed that the Dongjiang situation was indeed troubling him. He thought to himself that the Yanshan Forum would most likely be postponed. 3. Yanshan Society. Since Hong Tai-hung founded the Yanshan Association 3 years ago, the Yanshan Forum had been held annually, with participants being members of the Yanshan Association. The Yanshan Association had 2 types of members: corporate members and individual members, all enterprises with annual output values exceeding 100 million yuan or entrepreneurs with annual salaries above 5 million yuan. Among them were numerous corporate giants, such as the father of Chinese entrepreneurs, 8th Master, Mr. Ma, who built his fortune in internet finance, and Uncle Yao, a real estate tycoon. With so many powerful figures and celebrities gathered together, it was truly a top-tier club of business elites. The ability to assemble these national business luminaries demonstrated Hong Tai-hung's connections and status within the circle. During the initial preparation of the Yanshan Association, everyone had unanimously recommended Hong Tai-hung as chairman, but he firmly declined, instead recommending 8th Master as the first chairman. 8th Master had previously been the deputy director of a central research institute. After Deng Xiaoping's Southern Tour speech, he resigned to establish China's first private computer enterprise. In just 10 years, he transformed a private company with a mere 500,000 yuan in registered capital into China's largest computer enterprise, with computers manufactured and assembled for global distribution and an annual output value exceeding 10 billion yuan. 8th Master himself became a legendary figure in Chinese business circles. Ba Dong had once asked Hong Tai-hung why 8th Master was called 8th Master. Hong Tai-hung explained it was because his deputy director position was ranked 8th, the lowest rank. There was a hint of playful mockery in Hong Tai-hung's tone. Among Beijingers, only brothers would speak to each other this way. In fact, Hong Tai-hung and 8th Master's relationship was indeed almost brotherly. When 8th Master first resigned to start his company, he secured the first loan from a bank with Hong Tai-hung's assistance. Believing that a drop of kindness should be repaid with a fountain of gratitude, 8th Master was loyal. He continued to show great respect to Hong Tai-hung even after becoming a business magnate. Hong Taihong likewise treated him as if he were a brother. In Beijing, everyone knew about the relationship between Master Hong and Eighth Master. Only these two were addressed with the honorific Master among top-level figures. So it wasn't surprising that Hong Taihong gave the Yanshan Association chairmanship to Eighth Master instead of taking it himself. As for Mr. Ma and Uncle Yao, who served as vice chairman of the Yanshan Association, compared to Eighth Master, they were merely junior brothers in Hong Taihong's eyes. Without Hong Taihong's strong support, they might not have achieved their current success. Therefore, although Hong Taihong held no official position, everyone knew that Master Hong was the true leader of the Yanshan Association. Hong Taihong never kept his relationship with the Yanshan Association leaders secret from Ba Dong. In fact, secrecy was impossible because, from preparing the Yanshan Association to organizing each Yanshan Forum, Ba Dong was responsible for daily liaison and organizational work. If Hong Taihong had been the shadow chairman of the Yanshan Association, Ba Dong would have been his hand in connecting and controlling it. As his brother-in-law, Ba Dong had grown accustomed to working under Hong Taihong's direction over the years, even learning to anticipate his thoughts. In this regard, Hong Taihong's own sister Yan Bei was not as perceptive as Ba Dong. Once Ba Dong asked Yan Bei, "Do you know why your brother established the Yanshan Association?" Yan Bei answered without hesitation, "Why? Isn't it just for money? With each member paying 1 million yuan in membership fees, it's like creating a treasure bowl." Ba Dong shook his head. "You underestimate your brother. From my observations over the years, he's not the type of entrepreneur obsessed with money. Besides, can he spend all the money he's earned in this lifetime?" Yan Bei mocked, "My brother truly isn't an entrepreneur, but he specializes in making money from entrepreneurs." Ba Dong glanced at her sideways and asked, "If you say he's not an entrepreneur, then what is he?" Yan Bei smiled faintly and softly uttered 3 words, "A politician." "A politician? Now that you mention it, it's true." Ba Dong made a meaningful sound but said nothing more. Ba Dong always remembered his position. He knew what should and shouldn't be said, even in front of Hong Taihong's sister, his own wife. Hong Taihong particularly disliked 2 types of people. Those who weren't loyal to him. He had a famous saying, "If not absolutely loyal, then absolutely disloyal," and those who were too clever for their own good, for which he also had a saying, "Cleverness can defeat itself." Yang Xiu was beheaded by Cao Cao for being too clever. The Yanshan Forum, originally scheduled for summer, had been postponed with no further news. Ba Dong knew clearly that while the ostensible reason for the postponement was the Yanshan Association's change of leadership and election of a new chairman, the real reason was the Dongjiang affair. 2 months later, on a Saturday afternoon, Ba Dong suddenly received a call from Hong Taihong asking him to come to the Mayflower Villa. Mayflower was a luxurious residence Hong Taihong had purchased in Beijing after officially marrying Sheng Meimei, located near fragrant hills in a beautiful environment, one of Beijing's most upscale wealthy areas in recent years. Nearby was a newly completed golf course with facilities and a first-class environment in Beijing. Reportedly, retired central leaders often came to play there. The course was completely enclosed, with strict security checks at the entrance. Whenever Hong Taihong returned to Beijing from Miyun, he would invite several friends to play golf together. Though confined to a wheelchair and using specialized golf clubs, his skill was not at all inferior, which was certainly due to the coaching of Sheng Meimei. When Ba Dong arrived at Mayflower, Hong Taihong played golf with Sheng Meimei that day. Both wore white sportswear and berets, looking lively, especially Hong Taihong, who appeared calm and composed, seeming much younger than usual. Yan Bei, dressed in casual attire, sat on a lounge chair by the golf course, engrossed in a thick book, not even raising her head when Ba Dong appeared. Ba Dong was surprised to find his wife there. Yan Bei had known that her brother had returned from Miyun but hadn't mentioned it to him. Ba Dong's mind flashed a hint of displeasure, but he didn't dwell on it with his wife. Instead, he quickly approached Hong Taihong, enthusiastically greeting him from a distance. "Brother, when did you come back? You didn't notify me. I could have arranged for someone to pick you up." In public, Ba Dong usually addressed Hong Tai-hung as Master Hong, only calling him brother in private settings, following his wife Yan Bei.
"Didn't I say before that company resources shouldn't be used for my personal daily travel?"
Hong Tai-hung handed his golf club to Sheng Mei Mei, who stood beside him like a bodyguard. He took a wet towel from her to wipe his face, his eyelids drooping as he spoke.
"Having Mei Mei by my side is enough."
Ba Dong detected a hint of impatience in these words, but understood it as an expression of Hong Tai-hung's self-discipline, so he didn't think much of it. Many of Hong Tai-hung's major decisions were made at the Miyun Mansion or the Beijing golf course. Being summoned now surely indicated an important matter. Ba Dong took the used wet towel from Hong Tai-hung's hand and stood submissively beside him as usual, awaiting instructions.
"The Yanshan Forum can proceed now."
Hong Tai-hung's voice wasn't loud, but it resonated like thunder in Ba Dong's ears.
"Begin preparing all aspects of the forum immediately."
Hong Tai-hung paused after half a sentence and turned his gaze toward him. Ba Dong knew that Hong Tai-hung was about to dictate important instructions, so he quickly retrieved a notebook from his bag, ready to record. "First, the term of the Yanshan Association's first chairman has ended. I've consulted with 8th Master and several other leaders, and we unanimously recommend Mr. Ma as the candidate for the second chairman to be approved by election at this Yanshan meeting. Second, besides Yanshan Association members, this forum will also invite Bai Wen, China Regional Director of American Duku Company, and famous economist Zhang Wucheng as special guests. Third, after Mr. Ma assumes the chairmanship of the Yanshan Association, he will invest 50 million yuan to establish the Yanshan Business School, with Mr. Ma serving as dean and 8th Master as honorary dean. This item should be included in the Yanshan Forum agenda." After dictating, Hong Tai-hung asked somewhat anxiously, "Did you get all that?" "Yes, I did." Ba Dong carefully reviewed his notes and nodded. Each of Hong Tai-hung's dictated points was important, but Ba Dong felt there was something unsaid hidden within them. Gazing at Hong Tai-hung's inscrutable face, he finally couldn't help but ask, "The Dongjiang province matter. Has there been any resolution?" "I've already settled that, so don't worry about it." Hong Tai-hung lifted his eyelids to glance sideways at Ba Dong, waving his hand dismissively. "I received news a few days ago that the joint investigation team has been withdrawn. The Popular Arts Media Group is Dongjiang Province's only listed cultural enterprise. Destroying it would be detrimental to the province. Chen Whirlwind understands this much at least. However, the mess with Phoenix Island Resort Hotel and Wugong Shrine must be handled appropriately. With such a major disturbance, there must be some accounting to society. So, your friend Du Wei will have to take some losses." For months, Ba Dong had heard nothing about Du Wei. Now, hearing Hong Tai-hung's words, his heart skipped a beat. How will Du Wei be dealt with? Expelled from the party and dismissed from all positions within and outside the party. Hong Tai-hung frowned. Du Wei brought this upon himself. However, if he hadn't given Xiao Xiao a villa in the artist's village, Chen Whirlwind might not have been restrained. If the investigation had continued, it would have been mutually destructive. With Du Wei now expelled from the party, he's fallen from a high position into a deep valley, a severe blow. This young man has courage and cunning like a go-master. He not only made a strategic eye for Chen Whirlwind, but also implicated the propaganda department minister, Lang Tao. Otherwise, he'd certainly face several years in prison with the scandals exposed now. At this point, Hong Tai-hung looked at Ba Dong. Du Wei is indeed talented, and he's your friend. Once this blows over, how about having him serve as a vice president at Hurricane Investment? Though Hong Tai-hung's tone was consultative, his decision was unquestionable and directive to Ba Dong. As he pondered how to respond, Hong Tai-hung casually asked, "I heard you're helping Xingli with her overseas study application." Xingli was the daughter of former Factory 6803 director Lu Shengping. Ba Dong hadn't expected Hong Tai-hung to inquire about this suddenly. He felt momentarily flustered but quickly composed himself. Yes, Xingli is about to graduate from high school and has applied to the film directing program at Columbia University in the United States. As you know, Director Liu entrusted me with the care of his daughter before his death. She was his only family. Yes, Hong Tai-hung nodded. Come to think of it, Hurricane's growth to its current scale owes some credit to old Liu. Helping his daughter is our responsibility. Remember, Hurricane will cover all of Xingli's tuition in America. Thank you on Xingli's behalf. Ba Dong quickly bowed in gratitude. After speaking, he realized that saying, on Xingli's behalf, might have been inappropriate, but the words had already been uttered and couldn't be retracted. Fortunately, Hong Tai-hung didn't seem to mind. He turned his face toward Yan Bei, who was sitting on a lounge chair by the golf course, and said loudly, "Little sister, this time when Bai Wen is invited as a special guest to the Yanshan Forum, you should join Song Xiaofan for a retreat in Miyun. There's a Mingyue Temple not far from the reservoir. It's quite nice. Last year, during the Yanshan Forum, I went with 8th Master and some friends to offer incense there." He turned back, lowering his voice as he said to Ba Dong, "Yan Bei hasn't been in good spirits lately. When you have time, keep her company more." Ba Dong sensed deeper meaning in Hong Tai-hung's words, but couldn't ponder it at the moment, merely nodding repeatedly. Yes, of course. 4 sisters. After her father, Song Qiankun, died, Song Xiaofan took her mother, Luo Yi, to live in the United States for over 6 months. Only recently did she return to China with her husband, Bai Wen. Her mother, uncomfortable with residing in Beijing, had insisted on returning to Dongjiang, so Song Xiaofan accompanied her to stay in their hometown for some time. When Bai Wen was invited as a special guest to the Yanshan Forum, Hong Tai-hung specifically invited her to attend, saying, "Yan Bei will be there too. It would be a good opportunity for you to spend time together." Indeed, Song Xiaofan and her cousin Yan Bei hadn't seen each other for quite some time. Appreciating her cousin's thoughtfulness, she accompanied her husband Bai Wen to Miyun. The Yanshan Forum was being held at the Yanshan Grand Hotel, the only star-rated hotel in Miyun, located in Yanshan Town, not far from the reservoir dam. Upon arriving in Miyun, Song Xiaofan learned that her cousin Yan Bei was not staying at the Yanshan Grand Hotel, but at her brother Hong Tai-hung's mansion. She left her husband, Bai Wen, and went to stay with Yan Bei. Hong Tai-hung had not yet arrived in Miyun, saying he would come with 8th Master on Mr. Ma's private jet on the day of the forum's opening, tomorrow morning. Thus, only Yan Bei and Song Xiaofan were staying in the mansion. Song Xiaofan had visited with her husband, Bai Wen, twice before and was familiar with the mansion, though she had never stayed overnight. This time, with just the 2 women in such a large house, they could enjoy staying there freely for one night. After dinner prepared by Auntie Wu in the local farmhouse style, Song Xiaofan and Yan Bei took a walk. As evening approached, fallen leaves covered the ground of the courtyard, which was silent, emphasizing the vastness of the mansion. The autumn wind produced a rustling sound as it blew through, making Song Xiaofan feel slightly uneasy. She said, "Since your brother doesn't come to stay often, isn't Auntie Wu afraid to look after such a large mansion alone? What about her husband? Weren't they together before?" "Her husband passed away 2 years ago," Yan Bei replied. "I've advised my brother to find someone younger, but he's so accustomed to Auntie Wu's cooking that he's reluctant to replace her." Song Xiaofan acknowledged this with a gentle, "Oh," and commented that Auntie Wu's culinary skills were indeed exceptional, far superior to the university-educated chef in the city. She referred to the chef Hong Tai-hung, who had been hired after moving into the Mayflower Villa, a highly educated graduate of university culinary arts, skilled in Chinese and Western cuisines, and the complete imperial feast repertoire. When Hong Tai-hung invited Song Xiaofan and Bai Wen as guests, she felt the meal wasn't as good as Auntie Wu's cooking. From Auntie Wu's culinary skills, Song Xiaofan's thoughts turned to Hong Tai-hung owning 2 luxurious residences in Beijing and Miyun. Then to her mother living alone in that villa in Phoenix Island Artists Village after her father's death, in a situation similar to Auntie Wu's. She said to Yan Bei, "When will you go to stay at the Phoenix Island villa? Be careful it doesn't get damaged by insects. The lakeside humidity is too heavy. The last time I accompanied my mother back there, white ants were everywhere upstairs and downstairs. I had to spray several bottles of insecticide to clean it up." Unexpectedly, Song Xiaofan's casual remark stirred deep melancholy in Yan Bei. Ever since she had accidentally seen that woman called Xu Ke at the Phoenix Island Resort Hotel, she had been troubled and more guarded toward Ba Dong, suspecting that her husband maintained a continuing relationship with Xu Ke behind her back. She even believed that Du Wei's Artists Village Villa project was designed to accommodate Ba Dong and Xu Ke, and that Ba Dong's active involvement in the popular arts media group's stock listing was a way of returning the favor. She had originally planned to take the villa keys and stay at Phoenix Island with Ba Dong for a period each year. Still, now she not only refuses to vacation at Phoenix Island herself, but also prevents Ba Dong from going. Though they had possessed the property deed and keys to the Artists Village villa for over 2 years, she hadn't once visited Dongjiang. If Du Wei hadn't sent some photos, she wouldn't even know what the villa looked like. Recently, when she heard the news about the popular arts media group, along with the Phoenix Island Resort Hotel and Artists Village villas, being involved in a scandal, she wasn't concerned but rather felt somewhat schadenfreude. Later, upon hearing that Du Wei had been expelled from the party and implicated many of Dongjiang province's leading cadres, including Chen Yimeng, she began to feel somewhat uneasy. "By the way, sister, the popular arts media group and Phoenix Island affairs were causing such a stir recently. How are things now? I heard Chen Yimeng was also implicated. Is that true?" Seeing Yan Bei's concerned expression when mentioning Chen Yimeng, Song Xiaofan thought to herself, "This foolish little sister is still thinking about that man, her heart unchanged from her teens to her 40s. But this also proved that the man truly possessed an extraordinary charm. Indeed, from any perspective, Chen Yimeng was an excellent man, not only holding a high position, but also being handsome and dashing, with an appreciation for literature. Even in Song Xiaofen's eyes, he was not without appeal. Despite this, she couldn't be as emotionally troubled as her cousin and maintained some reservations about Chen Yimeng. After all, this Dongjiang provincial party secretary had recently created many challenges for her husband, Bai Wen, and cousin Hong Tai-hong. Of course, Chen Yimeng had also caused trouble for her. Thinking of the mess in Dongjiang province, from Du Wei to Langtao, involving so many people she knew, Song Xiaofan also developed some dissatisfaction with him. She sighed almost imperceptibly. "I heard that Chen Yimeng initially wanted to investigate thoroughly, but later discovered that Xiao also had a studio in the Artists Village, so he had to go easy on the situation." "What do you mean, go easy?" Yan Bei asked, puzzled. "Originally, they were going to reclaim the property rights, but now they only need to pay some additional land transfer fees according to policy, and the property rights remain with individuals," Song Xiaofen explained. "Actually, aren't such situations common throughout the country? If all were considered illegal or against regulations, how could they possibly be addressed?" Her words carried a sense of relief. If the villa property rights had truly been reclaimed according to policy, it would have been a significant loss. Seeing Yan Bei remain silent, she added, "Actually, Chen Yimeng knew nothing about the villa under his wife's name. It was all Du Wei and his associates' manipulation, with the real purpose being to prevent the investigation into the Popular Arts Muhtia Group's listing issues." "What issues with the listing?" "This was all orchestrated by your brother and Du Wei. You don't know?" Song Xiaofan hesitated. "I heard from Bai Wen that your brother is furious about this, feeling that Chen Yimeng shows him no respect. First, stopping the Dongjiang and Duku Company project wasn't enough. Now he's made such a strong move against the Popular Arts Media Group, nearly backing him into a corner." "You can't blame him," Yan Bei defended Chen Yimeng. "It was Xu Ke from Wugong Shrine who leaked the information. Do you know who Xu Ke is?" "Who is she?" Dong's former lover, Yanbei said through clenched teeth. I met her once at Phoenix Island. Actually, her real name isn't Xu Ke, but Li Hong. Li Hong? Song Xiaofan was startled. She recalled a person by that name who was the president of the Lang Taosha Literary Club when she studied in the writers' class at Dongjiang University, known throughout the campus for her romance with Lang Tao. Could it be her? While still pondering in surprise, she heard Yanbei continue. Sister, do you think this information leak by Xu Ke might have been plotted together with Ba Dong? Like a cold wind rising from a deep well, Yanbei's question startled Song Xiaofan again. She felt her cousin was being somewhat paranoid and shook her head, saying, That's impossible. Your brother has always valued Ba Dong highly. He would have no reason to do such a thing. Hasn't he done plenty of things behind my brother's back? Yanbei sneered. Looking at Yanbei's gloomy, thin face, Song Xiaofan suddenly recalled her husband, Bai Wen, recently mentioning that Ba Dong had purchased an apartment in Los Angeles, with the property registered not in his name but in a woman's name. At the time, she hadn't inquired further and cautioned her husband not to tell Yanbei, knowing the relationship between Yanbei and Ba Dong had always been strained to avoid misunderstandings. After all, Ba Dong was the CEO of Hurricane Investment and had frequently traveled between Europe and America on Hong Tai-hong's behalf in recent years. Acquiring some property abroad seemed normal. But now her cousin's words were clearly not baseless speculation, but rather pointed insinuations. She hesitated whether to share what her husband had told her with her cousin. While still conflicted, she heard Yanbei continue. He's not only maintaining ties with that Xu Ke, but has also become involved with Director Liu's daughter. He's currently arranging overseas study procedures for that little vixen. These words seemed to be squeezed through Yanbei's teeth, carrying a bone-deep anger, her thin body trembling slightly. Song Xiaofan felt profound pity for her cousin. Dusk had settled, the night flowing like water. The autumn wind came in gusts, bringing a chill. Song Xiaofan extended her arm, encircling Yanbei's sharp, thin shoulders, and said softly, It's getting cold. Let's go back inside. Returning from the courtyard, the two women drank tea in Hong Tai-hong's large study, which was filled with antiques, calligraphy, and paintings by famous artists. The 10-year-old pu-erh tea, gifted to Hong Tai-hong by someone, was exceptionally rich in flavor. They chatted for a while longer, seeing that Yanbei's mood remained rather low, and thinking of the Yanshan Forum opening ceremony early the next morning, Song Xiaofan retired to her bedroom to rest. 5. Forum. The opening ceremony of the Yanshan Forum was quite grand. Not only did all Yanshan Association members attend, but local party and government leaders were also present and gave speeches. Nearly 100 entrepreneurs and political business figures gathered together, creating a lively and solemn atmosphere. The highlight of the opening ceremony was Hong Tai-hong in his wheelchair, being pushed onto the stage by 8th Master, the first chairman of the Yanshan Association, accompanied by Mr. Ma, the new chairman. 8th Master wore a black suit with a bright red gold lion tie. Though his hair was completely white, he didn't appear old. His back was straight as a ramrod, not looking at all like someone in his 70s. After delivering a brief resignation speech, he said, A reporter once asked me how I, as an entrepreneur, understand entrepreneurial spirit. I answered, Entrepreneurial spirit means not being left behind by the reform express train. Be strong, not weak. These weren't my words, but Master Hong's. As he spoke, he pushed the wheelchair forward slightly and pointed at Hong Tai-hong, saying, Today, I want to take this opportunity to clarify something to everyone. I am not the founder of the Yanshan Association, but Master Hong is. He single-handedly created the Yanshan Association. Over these many years, Master Hong has nurtured countless entrepreneurs, including myself, who received his strong support when first starting out. So, if we're talking about the father of entrepreneurs, that title truly belongs to Master Hong. Today, Hong Tai-hong was also formally dressed, sitting upright in his wheelchair. His already robust frame appeared even more imposing than usual. Hearing Eighth Master's warm introduction, a modest smile appeared on his face as he cupped his hands and said, "Eighth Master is too kind. I'm just a bit player, a waiter serving all you entrepreneurs. Please forgive any shortcomings in my service." Eighth Master just summed up the entrepreneurial spirit in 7 words. Be strong, not weak. Very profound. Let me add that these 7 words should not only be the entrepreneurial spirit, but should become our entire nation's spirit. For example, when many Western companies came to acquire Chinese state-owned enterprises years ago, Chinese people felt they were getting a raw deal. But just a few years after joining the WTO, Chinese enterprises began going out, acquiring Western companies. This shows how our national strength has grown from weak to strong. When Chinese enterprises and entrepreneurs can be found everywhere in the world, it will show that China has truly become powerful. Today's forum has invited Mr. Bai Wen, China Regional Director of American Duku Company. He is not only an important partner of Hurricane Investment, who has overseen Duku Company's acquisition of many Chinese enterprises, but also a witness to Chinese enterprises going global and capital globalization. In recent years, Hurricane Investment's participation in acquiring several major American companies was facilitated by Mr. Bai. By the way, Mr. Bai is my cousin-in-law, and his wife, my cousin Song Xiaofan, is a famous writer. Song Xiaofan and Bai Wen were sitting in the guest seats. She hadn't expected Hong Tai-hung to introduce her and her husband so formally at the venue and felt somewhat embarrassed. Amid warm applause, Bai Wen took Song Xiaofan's hand as they stood to acknowledge everyone. Under the public gaze, Song Xiaofan felt uncomfortable, and after a hurried nod alongside her husband, quickly sat down. Next came the inaugural speech from the new chairman, Mr. Ma. This Chinese internet giant, who had been virtually unknown just a few years ago, had the surname Ma but no pockmarks on his face. He was fair-skinned, short, with a pointed chin and widely set eyes that seemed disproportionate to his truncated face, giving him an odd appearance like an alien. Perhaps due to his youth, standing beside the dignified Eighth Master and Hong Tai-hung, who were much older than he seemed almost like their driver or attendant, appearing somewhat diminutive. However, Mr. Ma's speech was crisp and direct, without empty rhetoric. He immediately announced a major decision: to repay the trust of Master Hong, Eighth Master, and all Yanshan Association members, I plan to invest 50 million yuan to establish the Yanshan Business School. The entrance requirements will be the same as those for joining the Yanshan Association, with an annual enrollment limit of 100 students, quality over quantity. The school's mission is to become the Whampoa Military Academy for Chinese entrepreneurs, and its motto will be the 7 words just mentioned by Eighth Master and Master Hong: be strong, not weak. Although establishing the Yanshan Business School was not news within the Yanshan Association, Mr. Ma's announcement at the highly publicized Yanshan Forum created quite a sensation. As soon as he finished speaking, several reporters rushed to the stage surrounding him. The afternoon had 2 agenda items. First, Professor Zhang Wuchang from Puhking University would deliver the forum's keynote report. Property rights lead to peace of mind, core values of Chinese entrepreneurial spirit from the perspective of property law. Second, Bai Wen would give a special presentation on major strategic opportunities for Chinese enterprises under the new Marshall Plan. Zhang Wuchang was an influential Chinese economist, most famous for his spitting theory. State-owned assets are like a bowl. Everyone wants it when it's clean, but if you spit in it, people will find it dirty and not want it, allowing you to claim it as your own rightfully. It's said that this theory guided China's state enterprise reform. Bai Wen greatly admired the spitting theory and had invited Zhang Wuchang to lecture in America even before coming to China. After arriving in China, he appointed Zhang as Duku Company's senior advisor for China and later introduced him to Hong Tai-hung, leading to their joint appearance on the Yanshan Forum platform. For Song Xiaofan, the topics of Bai Wen and Zhang Wuchang's speeches were too serious and dry to interest her. Right after finishing the conference buffet lunch, she received a call from her cousin Yan Bei. "Sister, I've had Badong arrange a car. Shall we visit Mingyue Temple this afternoon?" Song Xiaofan had been wondering how to spend the afternoon and gladly agreed. She exited the restaurant and walked to the hotel entrance, where she waited just a few minutes before seeing a black Volvo approach. As soon as the car stopped, the back door opened slightly, and Hong Yanbei stuck her head out, waving. Song Xiaofan got in and sat next to Yanbei. The Volvo silently left the hotel, heading toward the reservoir. "Ba Dong said if he weren't so busy with the conference, he would have accompanied us to Mingyue Temple himself," Yanbei said, pointing to the driver in front. "So, we had to settle for Little Ma instead." Song Xiaofan knew Little Ma. The last time she and Bai Wen returned to Beijing from Miyun, Ba Dong had sent him to drive them. Song Xiaofan politely greeted Little Ma and then turned to observe Yan Bei, who wore a white sun hat and loose casual clothes with a small Oxford bag on her back. She looked energetic and in much better spirits than the previous night. "I must say Ba Dong takes very careful care of you," Song Xiaofan said, withdrawing her gaze as if deliberately speaking for Little Ma to hear. "He takes careful care of others, too." Hong Yanbei's words carried an obvious hint of sourness. Song Xiaofan recalled what her cousin had said the previous night. Knowing that Little Ma had long been Ba Dong's driver and that every word might reach Ba Dong's ears, she dared not continue the conversation, fearing Yan Bei might say something inappropriate. As a cousin, it wasn't suitable for her to say too much about the couple's conflicts. Song Xiaofan lowered the car window. A cool mountain breeze entered the car, bringing with it the fresh scent of the wilderness. The Volvo drove along the narrow, smooth asphalt road beside Miyun Reservoir, heading toward the Yanshan mountain range. The sky was luminously blue in golden October, the best season of the year in Beijing's suburbs. The mountains across the reservoir were layered in various colors: red maple leaves, yellow ginkgo, and white birch. From a distance, they looked like an unfurling painted screen, an overwhelming sight. While Song Xiaofan was admiring the beautiful autumn scenery outside the window, she suddenly heard Yan Bei say, "Sister, do you remember the first book I edited after joining the publishing house that I told you about?" She turned her gaze from the window, wondering why Yan Bei, who had transferred from the television production center to become an editor at the publishing house 2 years ago, was suddenly interested in discussing her work with her. She felt somewhat puzzled. "What book?" "The biography of Zhang Da," Hong Yanbei said. "The author was Wang Sheng, who was sued by Wu Bozhong 2 years ago and sentenced to 3 years. Song Xiaofan made a sound of acknowledgement. The names Wang Sheng, Master Wu, Du Wei, Shu Ku, Li Hong, Lang Tao quickly connected in her mind, forming a strange pattern. It was a well-written book, but the subject, Zhang Da, was officially defined as a traitor in party history. The author seemed to want to rehabilitate Zhang Da, and since it mentioned our uncle, it couldn't pass review and was sent to the party history office, Yan Bei said. The party history office just recently sent their review comments back to the publishing house. Guess what they said? Since it involved her father, Song Xiaofan became interested in the topic. What did they say? The authoritative experts at the party history office said that regarding Zhang Da's status as a traitor, the Central Committee had long ago made its conclusion, and it couldn't be changed based on the autobiography of Bai Shouhu, the former head of the Kuomintang's Military Statistics Bureau. However, they confirmed the view that Zhang Da's self-confession was forged, which essentially acknowledges that Zhang Da's betrayal incident was a plot designed by the Military Statistics Bureau. In other words, Zhang Da was kidnapped by secret agents. However, they also said that while the book's viewpoint could be discussed as an academic issue, it couldn't change the political designation. They were ambiguous about whether the book could be published. I'm a bit confused. Was Zhang Da actually a traitor or not? Song Xiaofan's heart skipped a beat at the mention of Bai Shouhu. Bai Shouhu was Bai Wen's father, her father-in-law, a retired major general from Taiwan's Military Intelligence Bureau. She had long heard from her husband that his father had written an autobiography, My Life in the Military Statistics Bureau. Still, since it was published in Taiwan and only for internal circulation, she had never had the chance to read it. She had seen the biography of Zhang Da from her father, and the direct evidence in the book questioning Zhang Da's betrayal came from her father-in-law's autobiography. If her father-in-law's words were valid, then her father's account of Zhang Da's betrayal process as a witness in his memoirs was false. She had heard from her mother that it was reading Wang Sheng's biography of Zhang Da that had made her father fall ill, and he never recovered until his death. Song Xiaofan pondered these connections, thinking of the accusations of betrayal that had haunted her father for many years. She suddenly thought, if Zhang Da hadn't betrayed, then who was the real traitor? She felt increasingly uneasy and dared not think further. However, the party history office didn't completely reject the biography of Zhang Da. They suggested publishing it after further revisions by the author, Yan Bei said in a relieved tone. I heard Wang Sheng has completed his sentence. I want to go to Dongjiang to meet him and discuss how to revise the manuscript. Sister, what do you think? Song Xiaofan didn't answer. At that moment, Little Ma suddenly said, We've arrived at Mingyue Temple. Ahead was a small parking lot with about a dozen cars. When Song Xiaofan and Yan Bei got out, they saw Little Ma still sitting in the driver's seat and asked, Won't you come take a look? No, I came up here last time when I drove Chairman Ba and Master Hong, 8th Master, and the others, Little Ma said, adjusting his seat and leaning back, assuming a resting posture. Hong Yan Bei and Song Xiaofan left the parking lot and, following the signs, turned onto a winding stone path, climbing the steps toward Mingyue Temple on the mountain. 6. Mingyue Temple. The stone path leading to Mingyue Temple was surrounded by pine and cypress trees, with dappled sunlight and chirping birds, creating a serene atmosphere. Perhaps due to the afternoon hour, more people descended than ascended the mountain. After walking less than 100 meters, they encountered several young people with backpacks, laughing and talking loudly as they walked downhill. Upon seeing Song Xiaofan and Hong Yan Bei, these youths suddenly fell silent, stepping aside to let them pass before resuming their conversation, adding vitality to the otherwise quiet forest. Approaching the halfway point up the mountain, Yan Bei was already breathless and struggling to continue. Over the years, Song Xiaofan had accompanied her husband Bai Wen to numerous mountains and rivers across China and abroad, building her physical strength. Although nearly 10 years older than Yan Bei, she maintained her composure, appearing calm and collected. Seeing her cousin's pale face, unsteady gait, and frail demeanor, she felt sympathetic. She helped Yan Bei stop at the roadside, took a bottle of mineral water from her backpack, unscrewed the cap, and handed it to her. After taking a few sips, Yan Bei's complexion improved slightly. After resting briefly, they continued uphill. About 10 minutes later, they saw a grand temple gate flanked by a couplet written in powerful Wei-style calligraphy. One dream of the Western paradise. Who knows how vast the universe is in dreams? A single body resting in pure land, believing the sun and moon within are long-lasting. Passing through the gate, they beheld a temple with Qing imperial court-style architecture nestled among green mountains and cypresses. Though not tall, the temple possessed a solemn presence. Above the main hall were 3 large gilded characters, Mingyue Temple, which, upon closer inspection, proved to be Emperor Kangshi's imperial calligraphy. Mingyue Temple was originally built during the Kangxi era. According to legend, Empress Dowager Xiaozhuang's lady-in-waiting, Su Malagu, had a personal maid named Mingyue, Moonlight, who was naturally intelligent and devoutly Buddhist. She gained Su Malagu's favor and was regarded as an adopted daughter. After Su Malagu's death, Mingyue, in gratitude to her adoptive mother, observed a 3-year mourning period before leaving the palace to live in seclusion at the foot of Yanshan Mountain. With only an oil lamp and Buddhist scriptures for company, decades passed, and Mingyue transformed from a young woman with black hair to a white-haired elderly lady. She built a temple in the deep mountains using money collected from alms. Due to its remote location, few knew of it apart from some scattered local worshippers. Only after Mingyue's passing, when Emperor Kangxi honored her filial piety and loyalty with the imperial inscription Mingyue Temple, did the temple gradually flourish. During the Northern Warlords period, Fengtian warlord Zhang Zuolin and Jili warlord Duan Kirui fought a major battle at the foot of Yanshan Mountain, and the small Mingyue Temple was destroyed in the fighting. Half a century passed until, in recent years, several Manchu entrepreneurs claiming to be descendants of Su Malagu pooled funds to rebuild the temple, resurrecting this sanctuary that had vanished for over half a century. Song Xiaofan had just learned about Mingyue Temple's history from Yan Bei in the car. According to my brother, he and Eighth Master Mr. Ma and several others visited Mingyue Temple and donated a substantial sum for the temple's renovation.
I never expected your brother and Eighth Master to be Buddhists,
Song Xiaofan said, somewhat incredulously. They're not really Buddhists. It's like their collection of calligraphy, paintings, and antiques, merely an affectation, Yan Bei said with a dismissive smile. However, there's another reason why my brother and Eighth Master were so generous. What reason? Avoiding a direct answer, Yan Bei countered with a question. Have you heard about an actress who became a nun a few years ago? Having been in the United States during those years, Song Xiaofan knew nothing about domestic entertainment gossip. Seeing her cousin's bewildered expression, Yan Bei answered her own question. It was the actress who played Lin Daiyu in the TV series Dream of the Red Chamber. She was only in her 20s when she was diagnosed with leukemia. A few years ago, she shaved her head and became a nun right here at Mingyue Temple. Her Buddhist name is Miaoyu. Song Xiaofan had watched Dream of the Red Chamber long ago, but it had been so long that she had only a vague recollection of Lin Daiyu. She dimly remembered that the actress was beautiful and possessed a temperament closely resembling Cao Shuiqin's literary portrayal of Lin Daiyu. Learning that someone so young had contracted leukemia seemed to confirm the old saying, "Beautiful women meet tragic fates," evoking her sympathy. But what does this have to do with your brother and Eighth Master? She asked, puzzled. Because Lin Daiyu was their idol, Yan Bei said with a giggle. Haven't you noticed the large photo of Lin Daiyu in my brother's study? Song Xiaofan couldn't help but laugh. I never imagined that at your brother's age, he would be as passionate about following celebrities as young people. By now, Song Xiaofan and Yan Bei had entered Mingyue Temple. Before them stood an incense burner nearly 3 feet tall, with curling smoke rising from within. Several elderly worshippers knelt before it, burning incense, kowtowing, and murmuring prayers with reverent expressions. Upon entering the grand hall and facing a solemn Buddha statue, Yan Bei immediately followed the elderly worshipper's example, kneeling with closed eyes and a devout expression as she prayed. Having spent considerable time abroad and visited many Christian churches, Song Xiaofan was no longer accustomed to burning incense and worshiping Buddha. Seeing her cousin's sincere demeanor, she hesitated before deciding not to kneel alongside her. Instead, she simply pressed her palms together and bowed twice toward the Buddha statue. Looking up, she noticed a young nun seated on a meditation cushion beside the statue, an open sutra before her. The nun rhythmically struck a wooden fish while reciting, "When Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva practices the profound prajna paramita, he illuminates the emptiness of all 5 skandhas and crosses beyond all suffering and difficulty. Sariputra, form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. The same is true for feelings, perceptions, formations, and consciousness." Lacking knowledge of Buddhism, Song Xiaofan couldn't understand the scriptures and instead observed the reciting nun more closely. The nun wore a light gray kasaya with a round collar, square front, and wide waist and sleeves, completely obscuring gender characteristics. Yet her fair skin, delicate features, and graceful figure beneath the robe revealed a distinguished feminine quality. Song Xiaofan felt the nun looked familiar and tried to recall where she might have seen her when Yan Bei quietly tugged at her sleeve. The two left the hall, and as soon as they were outside, Yan Bei whispered, "Did you recognize her? That nun reciting the sutras is Miaoyu." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. When I worked at the television production center, she played the lead in a TV series I was editing. I visited the set once and met her," Hong Yanbei said with certainty. "She was younger then and much prettier, but her eyes and brows haven't changed." Hearing this, Song Xiaofan wanted another look at the nun, but when she turned around, the woman had vanished, leaving her with an inexplicable sense of emptiness. When Miao Yu was at the height of her fame, reporters would queue for miles without guarantee of an interview. But now, how many people even remember her? Yan Bei suddenly sighed. However, she's probably completely freed herself from worldly temptations now, reaching a state of great liberation. Form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. The same is true for feelings, perceptions, formations, and consciousness. "Sister, do you think Miaoyu deserves sympathy or envy?" Song Xiaofan hadn't expected Yan Bei to pose such a question. Still, considering her cousin's typically melancholic nature, similar to Lin Daiyu's, she understood and curiously asked, "Yan Bei, what were you praying for before the Buddha? Can you tell me?" "I was praying for Chen Yiming," Yan Bei said frankly, without concealment. "I made a vow to the Bodhisattva that if he remains safe and achieves his aspirations, I will follow Miaoyu's example and take refuge in Buddhism." Yan Bei's words once again startled Song Xiaofan. This fragile, sensitive cousin's devotion to love was so profound that she would even consider becoming a Buddhist nun. Song Xiaofan didn't know whether to feel sympathy or admiration. From Yan Bei, her thoughts turned to herself. Her own life had been filled with twists and turns, and though she considered herself a romantic idealist, she fell short compared to her cousin. She recalled her lack of grief upon learning of Li Xin's death in a car accident during her last visit to America, as if he were not a man she had once loved, but a stranger. Was it because she had grown older, or had they never truly loved each other? If she had never truly loved Li Xin, what about Bai Wen? Did she love him, or did he love her? These thoughts created a sense of confusion in Song Xiaofan, causing her to doubt herself for the first time. Perhaps she had never unreservedly loved anyone, not only Guo Liang but also Cheng Guojun. Otherwise, she wouldn't have divorced him so resolutely. She remembered Cheng Guojun visiting her at the hotel when she returned to Dongjiang 2 years ago. She had been unable to help his son-in-law, who she later heard had been sentenced to 3 years. Song Xiaofan felt a pang of guilt. As for her union with Bai Wen, she couldn't determine whether it was primarily based on love or practical considerations. "I cannot love with the same obsessive intensity as Yan Bei," she thought, unsure whether to regret or be grateful for this fact. The day before coming to Myun, Song Xiaofan had heard from Bai Wen that the Dongjiang affair had finally been settled, implicating numerous officials, including Vitsu Governor Yu, whom they had both met. After Chen Yimeng halted the Duku Company's acquisition of Donggang, Donggang's chairman Chu Dongliang was investigated for accepting private entertainment and commissions from Duku Company. Bai Wen had felt particularly aggrieved. Vitsu Governor Yu, who had strongly supported the Donggang acquisition project, had also fallen from grace, adding insult to injury. Seeing Bai Wen's dejection, Song Xiaofan had asked why. "It's because of the Phoenix Island villas," Bai Wen had explained. "You only had to pay some additional land compensation fees according to regulations, but the issue was more complex for old Yu as a provincial leader. Fortunately, Governor Luo wasn't implicated." Noticing her husband's evasiveness, Song Xiaofan suddenly thought of Lang Tao and asked, "What about Lang Tao?" Bai Wen glanced at her. "Lang Tao is fine. He's just been transferred to head the United Front Work Department. It's a lateral move, and he remains a standing committee member of the Provincial Party Committee." Hearing this, Song Xiaofan felt relieved. She had always maintained a sisterly affection for Lang Tao. Chen Yiming has created quite a stir in Dongjiang, though he hasn't gained much advantage from it. Hearing her husband's words, seemingly squeezed through gritted teeth, Song Xiaofan's heart skipped a beat. What happened to him? I heard Chen Yiming will soon be transferred from Dongjiang. Really? Song Xiaofan was skeptical. Your cousin told me this a few days ago. Could it be false? Baiwen said with a mysterious tone. Beijing is sending a provincial party secretary to Dongjiang. Do you know who it is? Song Xiaofan was somewhat impatient with her husband's deliberate mystery. Who? Zhang Haiyang, an old friend of your cousin's and a firm reformist. Though Song Xiaofan was unfamiliar with the name, her husband seemed quite knowledgeable about it. During his 2 years in mainland China, Bai Wen frequently associated with her cousin Hong Tai Hong, becoming increasingly familiar with Chinese society, especially official circles. He was now fluent in political terminology, and his manner of speaking increasingly resembled that of Hong Tai Hong. The Chinese leadership is evidently dissatisfied with Chen Yiming's actions, or they wouldn't transfer him from Dongjiang so quickly, Bai Wen said in the tone of a political analyst. China's reforms have become irreversible. No conservative force can change or delay them. Since arriving in mainland China, this conviction has become increasingly clear to me. Song Xiaofan, unfamiliar with politics, was confused by Bai Wen's comments. Hasn't Chen Yiming always been considered a reformer? How has he become a conservative force, in your words? Bai Wen seemed to find her question too naive to respond dignifiedly. He adjusted his glasses, which were sliding down his nose, a cryptic smile flitting across his fair face. Now Song Xiaofan recalled that enigmatic smile on her husband's face and hesitated about whether to inform Hong Yanbei of Chen Yiming's impending transfer from Dongjiang. Yanbei suddenly murmured to herself at that moment. Actually, I've come to terms with everything now. What have you come to terms with? Song Xiaofan asked, startled. Ba Dong. All these years, though we've been husband and wife in name, we've never truly loved each other for a single day. I've always had Chen Yiming in my heart, while he first had that Xu Ke, or rather Li Hong, and now Xingli. We've spent half our lives sleeping in the same bed but dreaming different dreams, deceiving and tormenting each other. The only reason he hasn't left me is that my brother can give him everything he needs. Once his needs are satisfied, he'll leave me without hesitation. I sense that day is approaching. Having said so much at once, Yanbei's thin neck showed bulging veins, her pale face slightly flushed, her eyes reflecting deep resentment. How do you intend to deal with Ba Dong? Song Xiaofan worried her cousin might do something extreme. Do you want to take revenge? Revenge would be too easy. I could simply tell my brother about everything he's done behind my back, and my brother would crush him like an ant, Yanbei said with a cold laugh, but then shook her head. I used to think that way, but standing before the Buddha just now, I suddenly understood what Buddhists call enlightenment. Ba Dong is actually quite pitiful, even more so than Julien Sorel. At least Julien loved Madame de Renal, but Ba Dong only married me to achieve his own goals. He acts submissively before my brother all day, tries to please me while secretly meeting his lovers behind my back. He must hate me deeply. Rather than being hated by him, I might as well set him free, giving both him and myself freedom. A win-win situation. Why not? Yanbei suddenly burst into laughter at this point, a nearly hysterical sound that startled several passing worshippers, who cast puzzled glances in their direction. Song Xiaofan noticed that Yanbei's enlightened expression mirrored exactly what she had seen earlier on Miao Yu's face in the temple. Her mind recalled childhood memories of visiting 9 Bingma Hutong with her father and playing with Yanbei in the courtyard. One early summer, before the grapes in the yard had ripened, she and Yanbei had crept under the grape trellis, picked a basketful of half-ripe grapes, and hidden in the back courtyard, eating until their mouths were covered in sticky grape juice. The two girls laughed together, their laughter ringing like silver bells. So sweet, so crisp. Epilogue. The wake-up bell had yet to ring, but Wang Sheng was already awake. The other prisoners in the cell slept soundly, the large man in the bed beside him snoring thunderously. At that time, Wang Sheng had been tortured by this snoring. He had already developed neurasthenia, and he even wanted to cover the mouth of the big man. For some time, he had to obtain sleeping pills from the farm's medical clinic. Now, however, he no longer found the large man's snoring so objectionable and even felt a little familiarity toward it. Wang Sheng knew this was due to him getting released from prison today. Wang Sheng had been delivered to Zixin Reform Farm in the back of a white prison van 3 years ago. As soon as he stepped into the dark shadows cast by the imposing walls of the farm, he felt like he had been hurled into a black pit. After 3 full, exhausting years, 1,095 days, he would finally escape that darkness. Oddly, even though Wang Sheng had dreamed of this day every moment in those 3 years, when it came, he didn't have the excitement and joyful happiness that most other prisoners had. Instead, his heart was unnaturally steady. The cell was designed for 12 people but held only 8, so it was not crowded. Wang Sheng's bed was by the window. Pale morning light streamed through the iron-barred window, carrying a bite of freshness. He sensed the smell of ripening crops. Squinting, he stared through the bars at the endless fields ahead, engaging in mindless reflection of the struggling days in the agricultural team, especially on that winter night. The serious moment. Guo Wensai had carried him across the desolate fields. He saw that as a turning point in his life. Since then, he believed that he had actually been reborn, the way the farm's correctional officers frequently said the prisoners would. As always, Wang Sheng folded up his bedding with care. He peeled off his blue and white checkered prison uniform and pulled out a new set of civilian clothes from a plastic bag under his cot. He bought these at the farm's store yesterday. He put them on and checked himself in the mirror, adjusting the loose-fitting sleeves and collar. Then he pulled out a thin release certificate with the official seal of Zixin Reform Farm. He was handed the note yesterday by the prison administration section and had spent the night with it in an inside pocket. Having made all the preparations, Wang Sheng picked up a bag containing his few belongings and walked toward the cell door. He lingered at the door and turned to gaze at his sleeping cellmates. He had only recently been moved into this cell after being transferred from the agricultural team to the propaganda team and library, so he hadn't lived there long. Furthermore, his shy demeanor meant he had little to say to his fellow inmates, and their bonds were not strong. After all, Wang Sheng just silently sent off them in his heart and silently wished them well, but he would not say goodbye. Oh, Lord. May none of us ever be back here in this lifetime, Wang Sheng thought, his vision going a little blurry for a moment. The sun was just coming up when Wang Sheng passed through the farm's main gate. Rosy dawn light washed half the sky, blasting the farm's gray office building with fire while gilding the tall surrounding walls, seemingly both forbidding and yet welcoming. Wang Sheng remained silent for a while, sensing that the depressing emotions hanging in his heart little by little melted away like the shadows behind the wall pushed away by the sunlight. It was a mild morning and hadn't quite hit 30 degrees. Wang Sheng was walking lightly to the road in front of the farm when a young woman wearing a red coat, like a rolling flame, ran in his direction, waving her hand and shouting, "Uncle! Uncle!" Upon a closer examination, Wang Sheng recognized it was Tian Qingqing. A few days prior to his release, he had received a letter from her, stating that she would come up to the farm on the day he was getting out to meet him. Apparently, Tian Qingqing had also remembered the dates of his arrest and release. Wang Sheng had no way to make a refusal, and he had a sort of quasi-family feeling toward her. Tian Qingqing came over with a bouquet of fresh flowers, still dripping with dewdrops and obviously just bought. The morning air had burned her skin as with rouge and made her look particularly beautiful. "Have you been waiting long?" Wang Sheng said with concern, looking at the oval face that bore such a resemblance to Tian Fang's. "Uncle, we just arrived," Tian Qingqing said, handing flowers to Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng took the bouquet, held it closer to his nose, breathed in its sweet smell, and said, "Thank you." A light went on for him, and he said, "You said we?" Tian Qingqing hummed lightly in acknowledgement, turned around, waved at a distance, and shouted loudly, "Come here!" Wang Sheng looked where she pointed and found a taxi stopping by the roadside. Tian Qingqing yelled. He then noticed a young man around her age who had just exited the car and was now running towards them. As he walked closer, Wang Sheng could see that he was tall, good-looking, and had intelligent eyes. He also wore the white badge of Dongjiang University on his chest, like Tian Qingqing. The young man seemed familiar to Wang Sheng, as if he had seen him somewhere before. Then he heard Tian Qingqing introducing him. "Uncle, this is my classmate." From Tian Qingqing's shy expression, Wang Sheng guessed their relationship at once, and then asked in elder tone, "You are from the same department?" "No, he studies law and I study journalism," Tian Qingqing said. "We started university at the same time, and then we both joined the Marx Society." "Marx Society?" Wang Sheng repeated without realizing. "The Marx Society is a Marxist book club," Tian Qingqing said, blushing. "We're both members." Wang Sheng contemplated this quietly with an "oh" as he looked over the young man and asked kindly, "What is your name?" "Hello, uncle. My name is Liang Tian," the young man respectfully replied, bowing slightly. Wang Sheng believed that Liang Tian was very similar to someone. Zong Tianyi. That nose, those blue eyes. He couldn't help muttering, "My goodness, the likeness is striking." In the midst of this daze, he heard Tian Qingqing shout, "Uncle, look who else is here!" Wang Sheng glanced back and saw another person getting out of the taxi that was parked beside the road, walking toward him through the pale morning mist and the brilliant morning glow. As the figure approached and came into focus, he realized that face, figure, and carriage. Wang Sheng recognized her. It was Gu Zheng. End of the novel. Manuscript completed September 11th, 2019 to May 26th, 2022, second revision. April 10th, 2020 to August 19th, 2021. Third revision. September 10th, 2021 to June 12th, 2022. Final draft, April 12th, 2023.